Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Jen and Jake's Bizarre Fray, the show where two friends attempt to destroy each other with Resident Evil, apparently. Because today we're going to be talking about the last recommendations we threw at each other. When we last saw you, we were talking about the Jaden Smith discography for some fucking reason, and the films
That
of
was
John
you.
Cassavetes.
You're the
I don't
reason.
know about that. I don't know about that. That's the past, Jen. This is the present, and in this present, we're talking about the Resident Evil franchise. No, not that one, and no, not that other one that we're probably going to talk about when the new movie comes out. We're talking about Paul W.S. Anderson's Resident Evil franchise. And we're also going to be talking about Jen's Mathcore starter pack that I gave to them. And we're going to start off with that. So, Jen, that was the good recommendation last time we saw each other, is that I was like, I'm going to give you a good recommendation that will still, in some respect, cause you pain. Because Mathcore, for those of you who don't know, is the fusion of the genres of math rock and metalcore. Combine it together, that's how you get the term. What does that mean, though? Math rock and mathcore specifically deal in things like time signature switch ups. They are about breaking the rules of music that most people use in order to construct it. It sounds dissonant, it sounds harsh, sounds strange. But if you listen to a lot of music, it also sounds weird and cool and fun. But then you combine it with metalcore, punk, sludge metal, that kind of stuff. You throw it together, and you get maybe the most abrasive subgenre of music available to you. And so, Jen, not as acquainted with heavy music as me, you've only heard a couple of the new recent Converge albums to acquaint yourself with mathcore, even though, as we've talked about on this show in the past with bands like Knocked Loose that I've recommended you before, you're not a stranger to heavy music, but you're still kind of ingratiating yourself. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do you a kindness real quick. I'm going to give you a rudimentary introduction to what I think is debatably one of the most exciting, fascinating, and colorful stripes of music that's out there. And I gave them to you in a specific order of escalating difficulty, of how accessible I deemed them, even though I would say that at the very least, these are still quite heavy, quite dissonant. But I wanted to talk about albums that were interesting because if I was going to do this exercise, a lot of people would see Starter Pack and they would say, "Well, where's an album by Botch? Where's Jane Doe by Converge? Where's this and where's that?" I wanted to be a little bit more specific. I wanted to do some stuff that was a little bit away from the well-trodden path and some stuff that's a little bit more in line with myself and gives me an excuse to talk about maybe some albums that we've only mentioned here and there in the past. So, I say we talk about them in the ascending order of difficulty. And we're starting
Yes.
off with Every Time I Die's Low Teens. Now, Jen, if I were a betting person, if I had to place my bets, I thought when listening to these four albums, I was like, if I had to put money on one of these being Jen's favorite, not necessarily saying that I do think that's the case, but if one of these four albums possessed the greatest chance of being your favorite, I would probably bet the most on this one. Not because it's the easiest, but because of, well, Jen, tell us about Every Time I Die exactly. I want to know how you reacted to this because there's a lot about this album that when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I don't think I can start anywhere other than here in regards to Jen specifically because this has a lot of stuff on it that I feel like is catnip for you.
So every time I die, for the record, I don't know anything about these bands. I mean, that's kind of the novelty of this segment. So I'm just strictly talking about like what these albums are. I don't know anything about these people, although to my understanding, this album, Low Teens, and the one of the other albums that we're going to be discussing come from very deep personal places for its lead singers.
Hmm.
And Low Teens is a metalcore album about getting sober because you're having a child
Yep, pretty
and how
much.
that's a fucking nightmare, apparently.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, and so every time I die, I love the start of this on Fear and Trembling. It's really the perfect introduction to this kind of music because the thing that makes metal so interminable for me when I struggle with it is that if I something goes on in my brain when I listen to the wrong type of album in the wrong type of way, where if I can't feel like I can really focus on the vocals separate from everything else, I kind of just get lost in the soup.
Oh yeah.
And what I appreciated immediately about Every Time I Die is that these vocals are loud and pronounced and very forward in the mix. And it's constructed that way clearly out of a want to be focusing on the emotional situations being conveyed in the lyricism. Because, again, this is a very kind of personal testimony style of album, which I think is interesting for a genre like mathcore, which to me is so built on play and the absence of structure and
Hmm.
messing around with expectation that I didn't know how an album that claimed to have such a strong lyrical focus could work. But the fact is that it works incredibly well because the lead singer of this band, Keith
Buckley.
Buckley, thank you. I was about to say Whitley. I was like, that's not correct. Um, this guy, Keith Buckley, is able to use the sporadic nature of mathcore to really paint an intelligent character portrait of being lost in a present moment
Hmm.
and not having the time to reflect on the decisions you're making and the factors that lead to you making these decisions. It's often wallowing and often kind of ugly. Like there were
Oh
moments
yeah.
of lyricism on this record where I felt like I probably shouldn't be hearing this, but in a good way for what this album is about, which is all of the malaise and regret and spite that come from struggling and, with my interpretation of the album, mostly succeeding to get clean and get through a difficult time in your life.
Hmm.
Because there are moments on this of real narrative ugliness that I just found so fascinating to sit through, along with, and this reminded me a lot of Converge, great moments of singular lyrical potency, like the depiction of self-destructive behavior on the song Glitches. Was I saving my soul or saving my skin?
Way he delivers that too, that entire verse, the fucking just like the machine gun staccato he evolves into, the I'm just a day tripper on sacred terrain, and then the fucking like just up-tuned guitars at the end is so like, ooh, it's just fucking gives me chills. I love that shit.
And then I loved the song C++, plus plus because that there is the first time where the album really gets outside of Keith's head to talk about the stressors that are on him, talking a lot about like medical anxiety
Hmm.
and like the knowledge gap that comes with getting ready to become a parent, right? All the stuff you have to learn about and all the uncertainties that go along the way of pregnancy and the way that he talks about being at the feet of machines. God, that really resonated with me in a way that's really ugly to think about.
Honestly, like there's so many moments on here where he reckons with like to me like the most pivotal song on here into distilling what the anxiety of this album is the song Pedal, which is one of the
Yes.
most like immediately when this song starts, it is one of the most pedal to the metal, like, oh, holy fucking shit. Because Keith Buckley, as a lead, as the front man to this band, vocally, like, I'm going to say this about pretty much every front person of all of these bands. This dude's one of the most talented people in all of heavy music. Like, he is such a dexterous performer that sometimes there are a lot of features on Every Time I Die albums I don't always know when they're happening because of Keith Buckley's voice, because he can just kind of do that. He has just an absolutely serrating higher pitched scream that is fundamentally just so ugly to listen to that when he's coming out of the gate on Pedal talking about how, her eyes are turning black and all of this shit and all of this anxiety of these
Everything is
horrifying.
black, but the thought of death is white.
Oh yeah, and how death is the purest of the drugs because it's everything it wants is like, ooh, what? And then the way he ends this song, I was just like, this was the moment that hooked me when I originally listened to this, is the vocal refrain he repeats over and over again is like born I can't remember the exact
Untimely ripped, which is a
untimely ripped, which
phrase
is
from the prophecy
actually
in Macbeth.
yes, I was about to say, like, this is exactly like, this tells you so much about the genre of mathcore that this is such a typical thing to do, that they would interpolate a line from Shakespeare into this part and then use that as a way of talking about how he says, uh, untimely ripped into this world, which is also a reference to like his wife getting a C-section during the birth of their child. And also, he says, I was born again as a girl. And he repeats that over and over again. And it's like he's basically illustrating a way of just like, I went through this experience and now I understand more of what it is to like be a woman and live with this anxiety just because I was able to witness it. And I had no idea the extent to which that it permanently altered you. And just being able to see that was enough for me to empathize with their experience more. And I just find that to be such a fascinating way of putting that. Like, mathcore is about finding the most complicated way to say the simplest possible thing. And that's why Pedal is one of the defining moments of the album to me. Like, there's also a line on here that's like, it's like, what kind of world do we live in if the smallest prayers firmly answered no? And it's just like there are so many single lyrics on here that Buckley writes that are so like individually clever. You just get caught up with them. And at first, I kind of thought that this album's writing was a bit too, not kitschy, but like was so deliberately clever that it avoided meaning. But then I go back and I listen to it and I'm just like, oh no, this is just super sharp. Like this is all just like really thematically well condensed.
And you're sick.
I
You're
know what you're about
sick.
to talk about.
You're sick.
How did you feel when you heard it?
You're sick. I can't believe I didn't have this spoiled for me. The song "It Remembers,"
Amazing.
which yeah is great. This is the album that features the most, I guess you'd call it, traditional metalcore
Hmm.
styling to it out of
This
the
is the
four.
poppiest album we're talking about by a good mile.
There's a lot of like very pleasant, like actually pleasant to
Hmm.
listen to singing on this that fits with the more melodic inclinations that metalcore has. And so of course, leave it to Let's Go Brendan. Brendan Urie of Panic at the Disco
Yep.
shows up on this song and delivers this insanely snappy chorus. But
Ugh.
do you want to know the funniest thing? I was about to like roast you because on the first time that he appears, he almost doesn't hit the note.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what's going on here? But then he comes back in later and he does this second chorus and it sounds
Oh,
decadent.
oh,
Brendan
it's so good.
Urie sounds incredible on
It's
this album. And you're a sicko for making me say that out loud on this
and
podcast.
that's the thing is that every time I die, they make a regular habit of this is that they'll get like one feature on all of their albums that comes from like a completely cracked place. Like I'm pretty sure on Gutter Phenomenon they have a song with Gerard Way on vocals. It's fucking amazing. Like they are able to take from so many different influences, and I think it's because they also blend in a genre of music that really makes this band what they are, and that being Southern metal. This is
Yeah.
not super common these days, but basically it's just like, what if you took Lynyrd Skynyrd and made it really, really fucking heavy? You take those gnarled guitars, you take all of those sounds, and you transpose them into metal, and it's sick as fuck. There is kind of a twang on certain moments of Every Time I Die's discography, a little bit more on the earlier stuff, but it's still here, and these guitar tones are simply not ones you will hear in other aspects of heavy music. And it's why I just get so much out of this band's sound. Like Every Time I Die are one of those bands, they've been active. Well, they are disbanded now, tragically. Their 2021 album, Radical, I believe, is their last album. But the thing is that even though they broke up in a rather unfortunate fashion with a falling out between the two brothers that are kind of leading the band, they still were around for almost 20, if not more than 20 years. And just every single album they've made is great. Like, it's so difficult to find a moment where these guys were not completely on top of it. But Low Teens is just one of those rare moments where all of a band's best tendencies just crystallize in one specific place. And I love the sound of this. I love how, like, it's accessible because these guys know the fundamentals. Like, they know the rules, they know when to break them, and they know when to follow them. And I think there's a really good balance of that on here.
I think where they get into breaking the rules is the increased intensity that this album gets to in its last three songs.
Oh, yeah.
Because it ends on one of its most intense moments, like the fast 16ths on map change. And
Mm,
that second verse is just a killer.
those
The way it
panic chords.
shifts, the way
Mm.
that it shifts into something even like louder, but somehow more focused when we get to that refrain of like, hell is not a myth.
I
Uh,
am the man who sank Atlantis.
so good. And I love
Yeah.
that it ends on its most intense moment because to me that just makes it so much more memorable, especially when I had some trouble with Religion of Speed, but then Just as Real but Not as Brightly Lit really got me back in. Love the
Mm.
chorus on this, love the use of unilluminate. That's just such a funny, not funny, but it's a fun turn of phrase that's perfect for like exactly this kind of moment in a metal
I mean,
track.
this is a fun ass album. Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, there's a lot of anger and pain and anxiety on it, but like there is the notion of why I get along with Mathcore so much is ironically the same reason I love prog so much. And it's because the people who are at the best at what they do at these things are the best at what they do because they are mad scientists. They use music like they would anything else to create something that is this bombastic, colorful, crazy thing. And it's one of those albums where it's like, yeah, if you've never listened to mathcore or heavy music before, this is definitely going to give you that moment of like, and I do want to reassure you, the phenomenon you were describing with metal music of not being able to like latch onto the music and then feeling kind of adrift, that happens with basically everyone who gets into extreme music. That happened to me. That happened to me with one of the albums we're going to talk about today. But I mean, not to mention like I was that way when I first started listening to 90s death metal, like Death, one of my absolute favorite bands in the entire world, like the best death metal band of all time. When I first listened to Symbolic, I was just like, this is noise. Like, I don't even understand what's going on here. This is fucking crazy. And now I listen to it and I'm just like, ah, yes, the Miles Davis of death metal. Let's fucking go, brother. And it's like, yeah, but if you want to get yourself into what this follows enough rules to be legible, but also lets you know how distinct and different it is off the bat. Let's talk about Pupil Slicer real quick, just because that's a more recent record.
And
And
we've reviewed Pupil Slicer before. So we
yes,
reviewed their new album Fleshwork over on Champs and C. And ironically enough, a big point of not a point of contention, but something that
Mm.
made it interesting to talk about was that you had given me all this presage when you picked it about Mathcore, and then we both listened to it and came to each other and we were like, this kind of doesn't sound like the thing that
Ah,
you
it's
said
sludge
that it was
metal.
supposed to be, does it? And we were like, yeah, it's a lot more sludgy, and I like Fleshwork a whole lot.
Yeah, it's a
And
great album.
that gave me reason to be excited about Blossom, an album that I knew that since its release, it's become one of your favorites in this genre. And
My favorite in the genre, period. This
the
is
thing
my
that
favorite mathcore album.
the thing that makes People Slicer really fun is that they're gigantic nerds. And
Huge nerds.
Fleshwork
Immense.
has a lot of Silent Hill, particularly the Silent Hill 3 DNA moving through it. This album, Blossom, however, is almost entirely a concept album from the perspective of a character in the world of Final Fantasy 14.
And the Outer Wilds. There is an actual passage from the game series that is used as an interlude track in this record. So it's a lot, it's basically a high concept sci-fi album that it is difficult just because this album is a little bit, I would say, genre spastic. But like once you nail down what this is essentially the story of a character whose consciousness becomes fourth dimensional, and within this context, they see the entire span of their life happening in one single collapsed moment. And they are essentially describing the horror of feeling what it's like to age, like progressively in the span of like a moment, to experience their life that quickly, to see themselves change, to see their friends and family ultimately die and wither, and themselves die and wither. And naturally, this is also very notably an album with a trans front woman who this is very much what this album is. It is an album about identity. It's about an evolution. It's about reckoning with who you are, who you're becoming, and who people perceive you as. There is the line on this album that I think about so endlessly, which is, "We are the stories we tell ourselves." That's the theme of the album at the end of the day. But boy, howdy, where to even fucking start with this fucking monster?
So the Final Fantasy 14 influence of it all brings in a particularly interesting influence. Jake, what do you know about nightcore music?
You know, it's funny. I knew a lot of people in middle and high school who were constantly telling me to listen to it, and I was like, okay. And then I did, and I was like, why are we speeding up existing songs and pitching them up? This does not make much sense to me. And then it became so enormous and inescapable that it became a part of internet culture forever.
And the first song, Momentary Actuality, there was a point where I was like, this sounds like a nightcore version of itself.
A bit.
Um,
Yeah, I can see that.
and it especially hits with the lead vocals, which lend this, I don't know any other way to describe it, this a little bit flowery texture
Oh,
to
yes.
this music, where a voice like that can bring a certain kind of dramatic gravitas to metal music and harder music that both threatens to pacify it and can also really accentuate it. And this is a case where the vocals on this album really accentuate the intensity of it. You get that on Departure in Solitude. Love the fast bass playing on this. Love the frequent switch ups all throughout this. But then you also have moments like Creating the Devil in Our Image, which the beginning of this just sounds like an Akira Yamaoka
Yep.
track
Yep.
that just kind of explodes. And then I love it. And then the song creations end with these insane switch ups between these 16ths and these eighth drum hits that are just technically ferocious. The thing about Mathcore is that it is actively often showing off how difficult it is to make
Uh-huh.
because the kind of playing that you have to do to make this what you want it to be is physically strenuous. And so these albums feel physically strenuous to listen to,
Yes.
the way that I think is interesting.
The playing has to be virtuosic or nothing else. That's it. That's all. That is the requirement you have to fulfill.
And the what I think separates this from an album like the Time I Die album, and even the most conceptual of the four records, which we'll be talking about later, is that the grunge influences on this really
Alice
give
in
it.
Chains, baby. It's all over this album.
Yeah, and I don't know much about Alice in Chains, but I see the grunge influence on this, and I mean that's something that pops up a lot on Fleshwork. I see the grunge influence as something that gives this album its really unique flavor to it, and that I think is also an extension of the like anime cultural influence that this album has. As you know, it's Final Fantasy, it's JRPG, so it's big, operatic, end of the world. Like this album is really based on a moment in the game where I know a little bit about this thanks to my neighbor Jared, because the developers wanted to rebuild the game from scratch.
Yep.
They built a canonical apocalyptic event where the universe reset so that the story would make sense. And that's what this album is
Legitimately
about.
kind of genius. Honestly, I gotta hand it to Square Enix there.
And that's what this album is about a character surviving basically the human instrumentality moment of Final Fantasy XIV that led
Hmm.
into the next expansion of
Th
it.
This
And
album feels like End of Evangelion, like 110,000%.
that's got to be a big influence to this, especially on
For
the
sure.
song
For sure.
No Temple feels like where that influence is most thoroughly realized with the that's where the grunge is at its most forward. But then I love the breakdown after the big uttering of the title. The
Yeah,
No
there's no
Temple.
temple anymore. And then the fucking thrash metal gallop that just fucking like bum 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 bum. You're like, it's so good.
But then I love the tension that this album gets at in its final moment of, yes, that line, we are the stories we tell ourselves, feels important. And then I wrote it down. But then I also thought about you are who you are to others as my own, like, because that's where when I get in my most anxious, that's
Mm-hmm.
the like philosophical truth that haunts my social anxiety is that you are
Oh,
how you are remembered by other people. And I
yep.
get that this
Yep.
album is about a very internal personalization and, being trapped in a dying world and your own dying consciousness by extension. But I loved Blossom's thematic resolution, this idea that you may never see yourself become who you were meant to be, but you can at least use the last of your opportunity to realize that, to at least attempt to materialize it in those final moments, because that's better or at least more cathartic than, I don't know, giving up and giving into passivity as the world burns. I find that a very interesting thematic idea and one that really resonated with me.
We we got to take a moment here to talk about my favorite song on any of these albums,
Please.
Dim Morning Light.
Oh
Oh
boy.
my God, if you could have seen the look on my face when I first put this album on, only having heard People Thought Slicer's first album, which is great, mind you, but it is very much Converge worship. It's very good Converge worship, but it is nonetheless that. Then you evolve into this, which is this multi-genre prog metal, thrash metal, mathcore fucking just opus of different things smashed together like this. And then you get Dim Morning Light, the penultimate song on this album, which is this gorgeous, watery shoegaze track that ultimately spirals into what feels like this sonic tornado on the fucking chorus of this thing. And it just sounds like music beamed in from another fucking universe. The way that the front woman the way that Kate Davies is able to use their multiple different delivery styles on here, the screamed vocals, the more traditional melodic cleans, and just like the way that the soothing voice comes in on the, and when I think it gets better. It's a moment of pure, unadulterated relief after the absolute assault that is the first three-fourths of this album. And the key change that happens at like the 3 minute
Oh,
mark. Oh my
yeah.
God, it's as close to seeing God as music will ever get you. It's fucking incredible. This is like a song of the decade contender for me. I am in love with it as just a moment on this album and a moment in and of itself. It feels transformative. It's so great.
So this next one is the one that I feel the most pressure on because I know this channel loves them some Dillinger Escape Plan.
That we do. That we very much do.
I mean, I'm gonna be right along with it. I like this album a lot. Let me get the awkward, let me get through the awkward of this.
Of
I just feel
course.
the pressure is on when reviewing this band in particular
No,
because
I
of how
I
much
I
this
get you. I get you.
channel
Dillinger's a big one. Dillinger's
this
a very
channel
big one
loves
for
some
us.
Dillinger Escape Plan. So I think I'm gonna ask you for some like context of the band's history because this is Dillinger Escape Plan's final
Yep.
album, and apparently that comes with a lot of like loaded
Yes, actually.
subtext, meta text, excuse me,
Hmm.
that informs this album Disintegration or
Yes.
Dissociation, excuse me.
Dissociation. Well, yes, actually. See, Dillinger Escape Plan got started in 1999 with their debut album, Calculating Infinity. And Calculating Infinity is a landmark for Mathcore because, Jen, as harsh as this recommendation was, I could have made it harsher because if I wanted you to suffer to the maximum capacity, I would have given you Calculating Infinity, which is basically as close to free jazz as Mathcore gets. Like that album for years was rumored to be constructed of time signatures that the band supposedly rolled dice about, which was not true, but had to be confirmed by the band because it was so believable that they were like, "Oh yeah, that checks out." And the the main mind behind the Dillinger Escape Plan and the longest member of the band is guitarist Ben Weinman, who's been there since the beginning and was there through every single record. But they had a different frontman on that album, Dimitri, who, I mean, the dude sounds like he's being tossed into a meat grinder on every single song here. Like, if you want somebody who purely just conveys nothing but unadulterated panic in their vocal presence, Calculating Infinity will do you just fine. Sugar-Coated Sour will basically blow the hair off your skull. And so that's kind of what put them on the map. But the thing is that Dimitri was in a car crash very soon after that album and was basically never able to perform again until years later, where they did a reunion show. So they had to cycle through getting frontmen. And the interesting thing about Dillinger is that the most important release in their discography is not Calculating Infinity. It's the EP that came afterwards because the frontman for this band temporarily was none other than Faith No More's Mike fucking Patton, who came onto this and basically reoriented this band's priorities into being a bunch of crazy little shits who really, really like making some of the ugliest music imaginable, but also coding it in just enough musical rules for you to be able to follow it. And then after Mike Patton departed, they replaced it with Greg Puciato, who I will speak on behalf of people like Morgan, for instance, when I say Greg Puciato is the greatest metal frontman of all time. I will stand 10 toes down on that statement because this dude has a level of talent that I think is just utterly unimpeachable. As a writer, as a performer, this guy's a fucking beast. If you want him to sing some of the most beautiful melodic tones you've ever heard in your life, he will do it. If you want him to sound like a dying fucking animal who is screeching out for help, he will do it. And over the course of Dillinger's discography, they kind of just built an assembly of other band members and people who were trying their best to make themselves as weird and as out there as humanly possible. And Dissociation is their final record, and it is the rare album where a great band knew they were making their final album and thus put everything into it. Dissociation is an album where there's a byline you could write for certain records where it's like, these guys are making an album like they're never going to make another one again. That was the mentality with Dissociation. It was also the first album I ever heard from this band in 2017 when I first listened to it. And the moment that Limerent Death ended, I was like, this is too much. I don't know what's happening here. This is fucking scary. I don't understand any of this. I can't do it. And now, 10 years later, this is one of my favorite albums of all time.
So, something else that I want to say that I appreciate about Mr. Pucciato's vocals is that I love his southern drawl that he
Hmm.
can swing into. Limerent Death is full of that, and I just love that southern influence because I feel like we don't hear it on any of the
Yeah.
other. Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
But the thing about that on a more traditional mathcore album like this is that I love Heartland rock. Like you and I are both big fans of Heartland rock, and we just talked about the Menzingers not too long
Yep.
ago, and I loved that Menzingers album. That was my first time hearing this band. So hearing a guy on this album who's clearly got a little bit of a southern drawl to him that he can pull out, that's just interesting texture. Like that's
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
draw me in immediately. And then, of course, I latch on to this album's theme of feeling trapped within your own psyche and not being able to like wrestle with your own insecurity about your connections with other people. And I loved a Symptom of Terminal Illness, which is a mathcore song about having a panic attack
Yep.
that, as such, is completely structurally unkempt and wild and
Do you
loose.
know what the chords in this song are colloquially called?
No.
Panic chords. That is the idea with the Dillinger Escape Plan, is that they are these highly pitched, shrill, like that is the sound I think of when I think of the Dillinger Escape Plan.
The most surprising moment on, God, really any of these records, the thing where I
Fugue.
was most taken off guard. Yeah, you sicko. Yeah, it's Fugue. It's Fugue. You read my mind. So Fugue is this instrumental track that has a dance break beat under it.
It's an IDM song. They made
It's
an
an ID,
Autechre
yeah.
song and put it on their Mathcore album.
It's an IDM song, and it's really swift, and I really like it. And it's a perfect
Fun as
follow-up.
fuck.
It's a
Like that
perfect
percussion,
follow-up
man,
to
it
wanting
sounds so
not.
great.
It's a perfect follow-up to wanting not so much as two. It gets into this really moody place where it's got this fast bass that kind of overtakes the break beats, and then Low Fields Boulevard comes back in with this loud, hard, and fast, and
Bro,
it's
Love Feels
perfect.
Boulevard. What fucking madman. What absolutely fucking crazy person decided to put a song that has lounge jazz on a mathcore album? What are these people fucking doing? I love them, but also there's that moment like midway through when it has that really Mahavishnu orchestra-esque break in the middle, and you just hear Greg just go like, ah, in the background. He's like absolutely losing his shit. Like there are moments where he just literally gets away from himself as a performer on here, and it sounds like he's going off into the corner of the recording studio and just like having a fit, as he puts it on Limerent Death when he's just go, "It's giving me fits," and then he
Yeah,
just does
it's
the whole
giving
like,
me fits. This
it's
album is
so
full
good.
of fits, including
Hmm.
its many sonic detours, including, yeah, the free jazz interlude after this gigantic chorus. But I think that the looseness of it is great for an album about dissociation, about
Yes.
feeling unmoored, about emotional loneliness and being stifled in this intimacy that's present but feels metastable. Like it could be gone
Yes.
at any moment. And what you do with that uncertainty in the face of this thing that isn't actually becoming malformed, but you're just constantly scared that it could be. Meta stability is a very interesting emotional place. And, we just talked about it on the Phoebe Bridgers album, but this is where it's especially relevant as well. And I loved that as a lyrical theme. What I found interesting about the song Surrogate was that the playing on the introduction is a little bit limp and a little bit underhanded, or at least it
Yeah.
sounded that way, where there's this kind of thin and a little bit tinny guitar that's at the start of this that's
Hmm.
underneath some of these vocals. But then as we're getting into this dissociative loop and then this refusal of the loop, the song just completely collapses. There is not a single moment of certainty in any of the sonic construction of this record.
Nope.
It's wild and unkempt, I think is the key word that I would use to describe it. And it's just a really interesting experience because then I have to say I didn't latch on to the vocals on this as much as I did on any of the other records. But that's not to say that there's nothing there because you've got Honeysuckle, which is, I think, the strongest vocal turn that this album
God,
has.
Honeysuckle beats ass, man.
I was born so happy, but it just takes so much to keep me alive. That's crazy, dude.
That's it,
That's
like
crazy,
I
dude.
think he and Keith Buckley, I think, have a lot of kinship as writers and how certain stanzas of theirs will just stand out as really sharp, really clever, and really incisive, which feels like it goes against everything about the construction of the music here. But it's the thing that allows you to have an in with all of this. Because on an album like Dissociation, you need an in because this is just constantly so spiritually progressive in how it continually evolves and how it will pick up ideas, leave ideas behind. It is such a restless, anxious album that I think what makes a lot of it super special is the really downtrodden place it ends up sort of ending itself at, where Dissociation ends up being the answer to the question that the album is asking. Ultimately, it's an incredibly tragic and really sad resolution where it posits that the only escape that you have from yourself and from the toxic relationship that you have found yourself within, it's either death by way of suicide or dissociating so that you can't feel it anymore. And it's like, it's a rough fucking pill to swallow, but I mean, somehow the instrumentation and the insanity of the rest of the record makes it go down kind of easy.
Yeah, and I really like the ending of this album.
My favorite Dillinger song,
The whole
Dissociation.
last stretch from manufacturing discontent all the way up to dissociation is great, but dissociation especially, man, I love this song. It's got this eerie bass, this oscillating industrial melody that's moving underneath it, and I love the ending of this and the second chorus and the second verse is great. It's very pretty Hate Machine,
Yes, very Nine Inch Nails. Very, 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 yes,
which I listened
absolutely.
to recently to prepare for our Nine Inch Noise review. So I was thinking about that while listening to this song in particular. Yeah, this one feels very Resonator, especially very early Resonator.
Yeah.
And it makes sense for the themes of the album that that's where some of that inspiration is maybe coming from. But man, I loved this. And I loved the strings on Nothing to
Oh,
Forget
yes,
and
yes, yes.
on Apologies Not Included. All these really fun vocal lines and just this song that sounds like a heart attack that won't stop happening to you.
Yep, pretty much. Pretty
And
fucking
so
much.
Dissociation was the most challenging of the three up until that point.
Up until that point. Man, I have been waiting a
Actually,
long time for this.
let's talk about Methwitch.
Hell yeah.
So you mentioned this album in particular to me before, Meth, which is Indwell, because you asked me how much I knew about Mathcore, and you described the premise of this album to me which is that it is a concept album about a man being possessed by a demon.
It is.
And
Yep.
I just have to like immediately play my full hand and say that this is one of the most invigorating experiences of listening to music that I've ever had in
Sickos,
my
yes.
entire life. I'm going full sicko yes for Methwitch's Indwell because
Yes.
I it's so obvious that I'm a mark for this. But the thing about me is that to get me invested in extreme music and to get me invested in art that is inherently like abrasive and kind of ugly is to show me something that takes that inherent challenge and inherent standoffness and apply the horror genre to it to textually reinforce that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, that's what got me into Knocked Loose. That led me to A Tear in the Fabric of Life, which was the first Knocked Loose thing that I had listened to and was the only thing of theirs that I had listened to before we did that discography breakdown segment for this show. And it's the thing that led me to loving music like Clipping's horrorcore albums or Gravediggers, one of my favorite like underrated rap trios, rap groups, Gravediggers leans into horrorcore a lot as a way to deliver its stories, and their music is a lot more
Yep.
generally abrasive in a very like definitional sense. Like this music just kind of hurts to listen to sometimes. Not
Mm-hmm.
so much Gravediggers, they're very fun, but
Yes.
it's more in the lyricism over there with those guys. But this, you knew this is easy. This is easy for you. You knew I was gonna be into this, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, but this is such a specifically difficult album to sell because like, I listen to a lot of fucking heavy music. Obviously, I talk about it frequently, talk about lots of extreme music. I would say with the most confidence that I can summon that Methwitch's Indwell is one of the three heaviest albums I've ever heard, and the other two are Strapping Young Lad albums, which are very differently heavy. This, on the other hand, is both heavy, claustrophobic, and just so into like there is nothing about this album that is an easy pill to swallow from like an outsider perspective. Like if you like trying to get someone to hear this album, you will need a couple pages worth of like an essay, a convincing essay to be like, no, this is why you should sit through an hour of some of the most hellish noise you can ever put your ears through.
It's the horror of it. Like that's my appeal, is that it's scary on purpose. Why
Hmm.
wouldn't you want that? Don't you
Yeah.
want to be scared? Don't you enjoy that? And like for me, as the horror buff that I am, yeah, of course I do. I'm gonna
What's
give
your
this a
favorite
go.
scary album, Jen?
The best way to get somebody to watch a scary movie is to tell them that you think they can't handle it. And so, of course, this is the perfect mark for me is like, oh, I bet you can't handle this, Jen. I'm just like, I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. And and honestly, this album starts in a not too abrasive place. The intro, I think, is a great way to tell the story of this because you've got this invocation of this demon that
Clonic.
allows for an aesthetic presage that means that this album doesn't have to start on fully green light go and
Hmm.
it can introduce a little bit of atmosphere and that type of thing is
Oh
fun
yeah.
to listen to because my favorite thing about this album is the pacing of it.
Hmm.
It works like a really well told horror story with all these different encounters to it. Like I if I to go in the completely opposite direction in aesthetic, I was thinking about that movie Undertone that came out recently, which
Right,
is just like what
right,
if the whole gimmick was that you're hearing all the scary things instead of seeing it, and so that movie's playing with a lot of negative space and using a lot of
right.
audio, but the thing is that it sucks and it's really bad.
Yeah,
And
it's kind
so
of what I heard.
The thing is that it's boring and it's exactly what you expect it to be.
Ew.
Whereas this is like it's exactly what you expect it to be in a way that allows it to be completely self-indulgent, and
Hmm.
that makes it more challenging and abrasive, which makes it the platonic ideal of itself.
Yes,
And I
absolutely.
love seeing a musical project that just has this perfectly realized concept and aesthetic for letting a genre of music that is all about being sporadic and being unconventional and messing around and letting all those permissive structures inform the story of it, which is yeah, this is a album about a guy that gets possessed by a demon and he keeps trying to kill himself and the demons just won't let him die,
Nope.
and it is torture. The music is torture all on its own. And I'm just a sucker for a perfectly realized concept like this. And I can't stress enough, this album sounds incredible. It's always so perfectly mixed in a way that, like, yeah, it's abrasive, it's serrated,
Hmm.
it's rough, but it's never like actually painful in a way that a bad mix is. Or like,
Yes.
there's nothing on here. This is always an example that I go to just because I think it's a good way to show the contrast in extreme music versus badly mixed music. And ironically enough, it's from one of our favorite musicians. But it's that song off of Little Sims's No Thank You that has that vocal sample on it that literally like blows your speakers out,
Yep.
and I can't listen to it if I'm in a car because it
I
hurts my
agree.
ears too
That
much.
was a bit frustrating about that one. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
The difference between that and something like this, where all the levels in the mixing and the mastering is actually there in a way that realizes the album's texture fully. Where it's like, yeah, dude, if it's too intense, just turn it down a little bit.
Hmm.
I don't
You're
know
not
what else to
missing
tell you.
anything if you have to dial it back a little bit.
Yeah, no, you're not missing anything of the narrative if you're having to dial it back because, again, big compliments to this. The vocals on this are mixed really well in a way that puts the narrative of it more forward than just the abrasiveness of the rhythm.
Them vocals, huh? Cameron McBride, the brainchild sort of Methwitch and of this like project. This guy is a fucking maniac behind the mic, which is nuts because I've actually like because this album is independently released and was mostly made completely and entirely by him, one guy alone in his house. It's like it's kind of difficult to find like extensive like writings. There's no like press releases or anything. So I got a lot of the information I did about this album by finding a like radio interview that I found in like some website's archive. And basically he was talking about the process of making the album and he was like, "Yeah, I don't really know how my neighbors didn't like file a noise complaint because he's just like, yeah, my room is like as soundproofed as it can be, but the pitches that I hit on the sort of higher screamed vocals, it can like slice through the soundproof like butter. It's so easy. And like you listen to it and it's like, is that like modified? Like, is he doing something to his voice with effects? No, this dude actually just has one of the most insane metal screams I've ever fucking heard. Like the way he goes between deep, lumbering, growling, just like, "Rrr," and then goes
Yeah.
to the most impossible sounding shrieks. And the way he does it, like, he'll like read the first part of a lyric, then go up in pitch for like the middle syllable, and then go back down. Like, it's so dexterous. I'm just like, I've never heard anyone be able to do anything like this before. I don't know how this is possible. Like, how could this even be performed live? I don't think that it could because it's just so fucking like like the interviewer in the that I was paying attention to was just like, I think the album's fucking great. Scares the ever loving shit out of me.
And that's what I would say. You know what? If I was looking him in the eyes, I think that's what I would say.
I mean, it's got all of this industrial texture to it. It's got all of these grindcore, just like suffocating fucking bullets of percussion that are all across this entire thing. But the thing about this album that I think is so fucking impressive, that I love more than anything else, is that it continues, it's like it maintains its abrasion, it maintains how challenging it is, but it is also just as versatile as every single album we've just talked about on a musical level. Because, like, the first couple of songs are very much this album's default of just like, this is kind of what this sounds like. And then we start playing around with like things like the title track Indwell or Spiral, for instance.
Yeah, the title
Spiral is a
track.
fucking Linkin Park song with heavier drums. Like that's
Yeah,
he sounds like Chester Bennington on here.
I was surprised by just how much to call it straightforward seems a little reductive, but I'm going to do it. How
Mm.
much like straightforward metalcore you get on this album in its quieter moments really surprised me,
Hmm.
especially where it comes in the sequencing. Like Indwell, the title track, is the first time that the album slows down a little bit and
Hmm.
straightens itself out. And it comes at a perfect moment because it's when the character is getting like injected with evil, and so it's this quieter moment where the character gets to realize the legions are, the devil and God are raging inside me. And and but then you get moments like Crimson Halo, which rack the intensity back up, and it's a shorter song, but it's still again, it's perfectly paced. Anytime this album like really ratchets up the tension, it does so in kind of fits and starts, or
Hmm.
has some kind of back and forth in the vocals that allow for a direct portrayal of conflict, like a bed full of snakes, which just made me think of the Gravediggers song "Pit of Snakes," which is why the comparison has been on my mind. In a pit full of snakes.
Listen, man, like I will say there's one moment on Spiral that I think is like so indicative of why the vocal presence on this album is so integral. And it's like when he's going into the really melodic refrain of the like, I am Spiral, and then he finishes the fucking syllable in spiraling with the and you're like, but the best sequencing on this album, the my opinion, the one-two punch that made this album one of my favorites of all time is the back-to-back sequencing of the songs Burn Victim and Bedful of Snakes, which are two of the most heavy, obscenely just the most pulse pounding. Holy fucking shit, how did anyone make something that sounds like this song's like Bed Full of Snakes single-handedly ruined the entire Slipknot discography for me because they just came and did the final form of Slipknot in this one song, which is the nastiest, coldest, sickest fucking thrash breakdown I've ever fucking heard. Bed Full of Snakes is legitimately like a top five metal song of all time for me. I fucking adore this song and how it transforms into this slow, doomy, fucking dread-inducing shit in that second half. And Burn Victim is just immediately those fucking hits, the percussion, the bum 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 bum, and you're just like,
Yep.
it's just like I gotta hold on tight. Fuck.
Yeah, and the album it's intense, and you're getting all these incredibly visceral moments of just narrative description of the protagonist trying to come up with all these different ways to kill himself, to stop the demons. Like,
It is like it is so morbidly funny in so many different ways, but the album's tone is so straightforwardly dread-inducing that it never threatens to like lose itself in its writing. Like you're always just like, oh, this is just always going to be tonally consistent within itself, despite the fact that it is constantly whiplashing around with sounds and influences and styles. It still manages to have an iron grip on the story that it's trying to tell you and the feelings that it wants you to feel. Like when I first listened to this, it was just like naturally I was not going through I was not having a good time when this album entered my life. I was contemplating leaving my job as it was like really, really fucking with my head a lot and I couldn't sleep. And so one night I just turned this album on like because I couldn't sleep and I was like, I need something heavy to just like pound all of the anxiety and like flatten it, because like that's what heavy music is to me now. It's something that's so overwhelming that any of my problems in my head get flattened by it, and that it just makes everything easier to deal with. And Indwell ended up being a balm to me in a really strange way, because whenever I hear this, whenever I listen to it, it's impossible to feel bad about your own life when you hear something as fucking like terrifying and misery inducing as this guy who invokes a demon because he wants, like, I believe it's actually like the name of a real Goetian demon that's like of like riches and whatnot. Like basically he calls the demon from Hereditary to come and possess him so that he can be rewarded, and ends up being like, wow, that monkey's paw sure fucking curled now, didn't it?
Yeah, and it's immediately just talking about like how God has forsaken me and God spitting in his face and
And it
oh,
makes a lot of sense that this came from somebody who grew up in very rural Texas in a very, very religious environment. It's like, okay, I see the connecting threads of all of what's going on here. This makes a lot of sense.
and I said this to some extent about Knocked Loose, and I'll repeat it here. The thing that makes all of this tolerable, bearable, is that there's a real like density and prowess to the composition and the mixing that
Hmm.
makes you like wants to follow the intensity of it. If you're into music, if you're into seeing the possibilities of music realized, there's no more challenging place to see the limit than stuff like this, where something that has to do the work to be as dark and dreary and oppressive as
Yep.
possible without veering into unintentional comedy, kind of like
Hmm.
you mentioned before. Music like this is where that comes in. Because, yeah, even when the different descriptions of like scooping his brains back into his head and all this other stuff, like it can be funny if it wasn't rendered with such abject, abrasive terror and fear
The
at
fucking
every
tone in his
moment.
voice when he's on Burn Victim, where he's just like, set myself on fire. It's just like, oh God, okay, all right, I guess we're going here right now. And he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna pour myself with gasoline and light the fucking fuse, man. Let's go. Time to get out.
And then the snarkiness of the vocals of the demons. I mean, the album gets to a point of real sadomasochism.
Oh, this is an Evil Dead movie in album form. Like, he is being possessed by a deadite who is cruelly taunting him the entire time. Because it's just like, nope, nope, you're not getting away from this. You called us. We're here. No return policy, no receipt. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the kind of I always picture like the horror of the Deadites as a particularly like pathetic thing to witness because it's just the kind of treatment that reduces your responses to just like the only thing you can do is throw a temper tantrum about it because you're
Yeah,
just
it's like
completely
what
powerless in the face of it and they just keep laughing in your face about it. And so you're just reduced to this blubbering mess of like, it's not fair, man.
you can't just insult me while you murder me. And it's like, oh, but I fucking can and I fucking will, man. It's like, yeah, this has
You're
the
being
exact same
so
appeal.
mean.
It's, yeah, it's like this is Evil Dead Burn in album form.
Yeah, yeah. How was that movie, by the way? I haven't seen that one
Loved
yet.
it. Loved it. I love me a good fucking like Evil Dead is my horror franchise, and that exactly explains to you the appeal of this album and why I like it so much, is because it's a lot of the same thing, except instead of, the very vibrant, very, pedal to the metal filmmaking, it's the production here that is the kind of the style that dresses up everything in a way that makes you really, really appreciate it. It's the technical acumen on display is fucking sensational, but it's how the technical acumen is channeled. And ultimately, this just becomes an album that I've listened to it so much that I do just kind of have fun with it at this point, but it's also something that like I don't think I've listened to it front to back in like like maybe almost a full year, just because yes, it's incredible, it's mixed well, and you won't get a headache by listening to the straight hour of it necessarily. but it is also a lot. It is a very demanding listen that like you have to pay attention to and absorb, and sometimes you are just not in the mood for all 57 minutes of this fucking album because it takes it out of you. It is exhausting in a satisfying way, in like a cleansing way. That's what I look for in heavy music that goes for broke, is that I want to feel exhausted by the end of it, but in a way that's like, the way you feel when you finish one of those two clipping albums and it ends on the like sunrise coming over the horizon moment of just like, clarity. Everything has vanished. I can now move on. It's quite valuable to me in that respect. It's why it became such a like cherished album to me in a weird way.
And it lands that through, the song Exhale being so moody and a little bit more downbeat, but I love
Oh,
the
Nine Inch
energy.
Nails. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit more on the Nine Inch Nails side than the rest of this album has been, which is just full of verve and kinetic energy, and I love it. But I do like when this album slows down and gets a little bit more atmospheric
You got to
and
have some varying
gothic with
tempos on here because if you just do Bed Full of Snakes 15 times, it's like, all right, we've hit critical mass. That's a bit much.
but this is a time.
I am
I
glad
gotta
that you have it.
say, the Mathcore adventure was quite invigorating. It's
Yeah,
been a
these
while since I've listened to anything this intense because it's been a while since we've done anything like it for jams and tea. And my love, my newfound, not newfound, it's been a while, but the love for Knocked Loose that this show also helped me discover is one of the great gifts that you've given me. And there are a couple albums on this that I hold in about the same esteem. This one, absolutely so. Low Teens, a little bit less so, but still really, 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 really great. Honestly, I think Methwitch is my favorite out of the four just because
Oh, fuck yes. Let's go.
it's my sicko, it's
Yeah,
my sicko energy.
and I
I
I should
appreciate the
have
going for
foreseen that.
broke. I
I should
appreciate the
have
going
called
for
that.
broke. More than anything else, I appreciated the going for broke nature of it.
I wanted to pick like my methodology here in picking these four albums was A, they are all four canonical Jake 10 out of 10s, but they also it's the reason I chose these four specifically were because they have something conceptual about them that requires them to be mathcore in order for them to work as what they are. And it's like that's true for a lot of great mathcore albums, but these specifically I feel like showcase the breadth of the genre. It's like you have horror, you have existential sci-fi, you have like something a little bit more personal that's a little bit more rooted in a lived experience that someone's actually had, and then you have also just a sort of treatise on interpersonal relationships and being locked inside your own neuroses. It's like it just gives you a little bit of everything and shows you the potential of art forms that are willing to embrace ugliness and nastiness and to break rules, but in order to achieve something that things that follow the rules can't quite do. Because, like, tell me that Blossom by Pupil Slicer can be what it is without being as musically erratic as it is, because I don't think that it can.
Mathcore in general is an argument for experimentation as a path to creation. And I
Yes.
love that about it. So I loved this pick. I had a great time listening to all these albums. If you're like me and you don't know and you didn't know as much about this, decide if any of these sound right for you. If you're really sicko-minded like me,
Hmm.
I'm gonna challenge you to go in with
You
Methwitch.
don't
But
even got to start with the accessible one. Start with the one who you're just like, oh man, that kind of sounds a little interesting to me. Do it. Do it. Take the plunge.
yes, follow the one that piqued your interest out of the four, if any of them did. And as far as points go for this, I think this is gonna get a four. I think this is gonna get a
Sick.
four. I
Sick.
really
Awesome.
appreciated this experiment.
All right. All right. Resident Evil.
My name is Jen. Last time,
And I used to
I
work for the Umbrella Corporation.
and I used to work for the Umbrella Corporation. Last time on this show, I told Jake that I wanted to learn more about survival horror franchises, something that Jake is so passionate about. And I decided that I wanted to do this in the way that Jake taught me how to do. I learned about Silent Hill by watching the Silent Hill movies. And so, what better way to learn about the spoils of Resident Evil than to watch the Resident Evil
You want me
films?
to get you a shovel so you can keep digging there, pal?
And I want to go ahead and say, I'm going to say some unkind things about the intellectual property Resident Evil
How are you?
by extension of talking about these films, but I do not hold hate in my heart for Resident Evil. In fact, the thing that got me
Oh,
through this experience was my friend and neighbor Jared, who is a certified Resident Evil expert. And so I've been watching him as we've been talking about these films. I've been just like going over to his place and watching him play through some of these games and watching him play a little bit of the Resident Evil 4 remake. I played a little bit of the Resident Evil 2 remake myself. And so I've been getting samplings of at least the remakes, and I've been learning more about what makes survival horror appealing as a genre from playing games like Luigi's Mansion and Silent Hill 2. I love calling Luigi's Mansion survival
I
horror.
do too.
It's so
It
funny.
brings me great joy every time you do it. I hope you keep doing it, and I hope people are annoyed by it.
And they should be because I know that I'm annoying, but I'm doing what I'm doing
Do it
anyway.
anyway. I don't
Uh,
care. Fuck them.
and the Resident Evil films have like long been a joke in my eyes
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because we've talked about this some before, but the kids don't know how we used to have it with the video game movies.
Yeah, we have
Video
respectable
game,
people making these nowadays. Occasionally, it's not exactly a resplendent and accredited genre of film, but like we're getting Zach Kreger to make the new one, so obviously something has changed.
like Resident Evil in particular, has a weird reputation over here in America.
Mm.
Because like I remember learning about Resident Evil through like Watch Mojo videos that made fun of the voice acting. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how I
Yeah.
learned about like the scariest games of all time was the
You were
lady from
almost a
Watch
Jill
Mojo.
sandwich.
I was saying was the lady from Watch Mojo making fun of Jill Sandwich.
Yep.
And
Yep. Yep. Yep.
to me, now as an adult, I understand the appeal of Resident Evil in a way that was never really communicated to me by like the internet when I was
Yeah.
learning about things like this and learning about, staples of horror video games.
Especially with the
Res
resurgence of the new games, too. I think that this series is seeing a legitimate second life as the franchise is really starting to reinvent itself with 7, 8, and 9.
the thing that nobody told me, and the thing that I'm really enjoying about these games is that they're silly on purpose.
Yes, they're all
Like
Romero riffs.
they're funny, they're silly on
The
purpose. Like
B-movies.
it's not an accident.
No.
And some people, I don't know what it is, man. Like everybody wants to be ironic until they see a real attempt at combination of horror and B movie schlock like coming their way, and then they all of a sudden act like they don't know what a heightened tone is.
Yeah,
And
as though the horror genre was not born with people like Sam Raimi. Like, come on, y'all. What are we doing?
the Resident Evil movies are a really particular case because right from the jump, you have this kind of egregious element to them of the main protagonist.
Are we gonna have to bring out the sign, Jen? Do we have to bring out the term that we both hate using, but we have to keep finding ourselves using anyway? You know
I'm
where
not
this
gonna
is.
say it yet. I'm not gonna say it yet.
Okay, okay, just making sure. Just making sure.
So, how the hell did it take you this long to see these movies? What's your experience of the Resident Evil?
Okay. Well, when it comes to the games, I'm pretty well versed. I'm a big Resident Evil fan. I have not played them nearly as much as some of my like more diehard like friends just because I haven't really had the time. Like I, for example, played through maybe the first couple of hours of 9 and I still really need to get back to it because I fucking loved what I had played of it, but just like, time got away from me. So I will be revisiting that and that will probably make it onto one of my end of the year thingamajigs or whatnot. But like I loved 8, I adored 7. There's some of the spin-offs that I really like, and of course, the 2 remake is great. The original remake is great. I have yet to go back and revisit 4. But with the movie specifically, I had seen the original film Apocalypse. I think I'd seen the original first 3 in like middle high school, basically, which is weird because that was before I ever really got into horror the way I am now. And it was primarily because the Resident Evil movies are not horror movies. They do not elicit fear, nor do they really ever attempt to elicit fear. So if you're trying to enter this world as like as kind of a gateway of some kind, that's I won't say it's a good place to start considering what I have to say about the quality of these films, but like in theory, it is a way you can do that. And I guess I just kind of remembered them being boring. I just didn't really have many memories about them. And the reason I became so impassioned in my dislike for them was because of the second life that they've been given as kind of reclaimed vulgar auteurist trophies within film circles.
Are we gonna make
And
some people mad?
proba-fucking-bly. And but the thing is that there's no like consensus on them. It's so difficult to find people who align on which ones they think are like the good ones or whatnot, that it's just kind of a bit elusive to me. But I was like, okay, you know what? If I'm going to go into this, I'm going to go into this for the sake of putting my definitive stamp on everything that it has to do with these films because they originally were brought up with the original film as the kind of first initial wave of video game movies. The Silent Hill movie, that's one of them. The Resident Evil movie was often thought about in concert with it just because they are sort of kind of sister franchises, but also because they were just very popular at around the same time. And when I went back and watched the original Silent Hill, I was like, yeah, this has its problems and I'm not really completely on board with it, but like there's lots of technical elements about this that I really, really like. There's lots of atmospheric elements that I really, really like. And for as many deviations as that original Silent Hill movie does end up making, go check out our video on it if you want to see our thoughts more on it. But it's like, you can see the game that it's adapting in there. It's not all the way in there. It doesn't maybe fully get there, but you can see that an earnest attempt was made. And then there's the Resident Evil movie, and the thing is that the combination of Resident Evil that makes it so essential to me is the thoughtful level design, the thoughtful sort of aesthetics, the way that like the game's actual construction as a video game is insanely intelligently designed. Like in the franchise's best moments, they are peak. Absolutely, but they also combine it with the low art appeal of the Romero-inspired, haha, cheesy, silly dialogue and characters kind of stuff. That's kind of where the magic comes from. It is a high art and low art synthesis that ends up making something that's very tonally fun, very buoyant. You get to experience the real fear of actually being afraid of what's around the next corner, but also, haha, Barry Burton said Jill Sandwich. It's funny. It's very enjoyable. So really, it's kind of a low bar to clear because Silent Hill's influences are all insanely difficult to translate into film well, even though they do exist. They're David Lynch. They're stuff that comes from things that are avant-garde and weird and strange and things that alienate people when they try to get into it. With Resident Evil, it's a little bit different. When you're doing the riffs that they're doing, it's cheesy B-movie horror movies from the 80s. So it's like if you want to return to that place, I feel like that's not a huge stretch to be able to make.
Yeah, and even because the Romero Night of the Living Dead is a maturation of the atomic horror of the 50s.
Yeah.
Your them,
Hmm.
your
That's
giant monster pictures that are definitive like MST 3000's bait if you're into that sort of thing.
yes.
And Resident Evil is about taking that and running with it and doing zombies with it, but also making an intelligently designed game that makes it scarier because you're actively having to manage your resources. And so you actually are scared of facing these zombies and giant snakes and giant monsters and whatever, because you know that, especially if you're playing on a higher difficulty, that the margins of success are narrow. And so
Yeah.
those games can be intense even as they are incredibly funny.
Yeah, exactly. They're silly, but they never have that silliness obfuscate the purpose you're actually playing them. Which means, theoretically, if you were translating the mediums, ideally, you would try to translate, like, I want to preface with this just to go off the bat. I do not give a fuck about these movies not adhering to like the canon story of Resident Evil. Because if you're a Resident Evil fan, I really, really struggle to see how you don't see these games' stories as deeply fucking silly. Like, I am not invested in these stories or these characters. I am invested in how they apply to me as a player. I just think that Leon Kennedy roundhouse kicking zombie doctors is rad and cool and fun, and that's nice. But the thing is with these is that you have to translate the two core appeals. I don't care about the story or the characters. Care about the appeal, the combination of tension and the combination of cheesy B-movie horror. Just throw those two things together. And immediately, this franchise is a losing prospect because they are all incredibly tensionless, fluffy action movies. Like, the horror here is aesthetic. These are not horror in practice. These are basically all iterations on post 2000s Matrix riffs. They are trying to capture very specific cinematic reference points from action movies at the time or just that they particularly want to call back to. And I mean, I guess that's not the worst thing in the world, but just if you want to do something with these, it just strikes me as odd that you're just canceling out half of the appeal right away. But like whatever. Maybe they still manage to succeed when they pick a lane and then go to it. Which brings us to the first Resident Evil movie, Paul W.S. Anderson's Resident Evil. And the thing is that I don't remember this movie being awful. I don't remember this movie being any stripe of just like, oh my God, this is absolutely unbearable by any means. I just remember it being kind of subpar. I was like, yeah, I ended up preferring the Silent Hill movie. I thought the filmmaking was better. I just kind of thought that everything was a little bit more interesting. And as an adaptation of like trying to adapt Resident Evil 1, which is already very loose, like very, very broad strokes kind of stuff. Like there is a mansion. They don't spend any time in the mansion, but there is one, like there is in Resident Evil 1. And essentially, it is a team of people who, are supposed to be stand-in for the STARS unit of the first game, have to enter this underground laboratory called the Hive, where the Umbrella Corporation is manufacturing the T virus in order to do their evil pharmaceutical bullshit that Umbrella is literally always up to. And at the center of it is our main character, played by Mila Jovovich, Alice, and she wakes up and she doesn't have any memory and she's in the mansion, and then the team comes and they rendezvous and they have to make it to the Hive, and then there's like an AI there that's like trying to control all this stuff to rein in the T virus outbreak, all of that good stuff. And I was like, okay, I at least know what my expectations are for this movie. I remember a little bit about it. I remember the laser grid. I remember, Mila Jovovich being there. I remember, the one lady from the Fast and the Furious, who's Michelle
Michelle
Rodriguez. Yes,
Rodriguez.
Michelle
Love
Rodriguez. I was
her.
like, she's there. We have this setup, and it is relatively simple. The problem is that it is so relatively simple. that I really don't have much to say about the original Resident Evil movie because it's really fucking boring. It's really fucking boring. And like the filmmaking is not what I would call good, but it's also not like incompetent in the way that this franchise will occasionally dip its toes into. It is just good enough to skate by on being like a fundamental blockbuster, but as a fundamental blockbuster, I find it so flavorless. There's just the sort of sterile environment of the laboratory just doesn't do a whole lot for me in a franchise that is so tailored around its aesthetics. Like the Gothic mansion of the original Resident Evil is such a vital component of the setting, not because I need to see something Gothic in Resident Evil, but just because it's a cool place to have your story take place in.
Yeah, and
This
like that's a key
clinical
part
fucking
of the
hospital ass hive, whatever, man. It's a bunch of white walls.
it's a
Eh.
key part of the aesthetic that there's a little bit of like Gothic architecture to it. Even the police station in Resident Evil 2 looks like a giant library for some reason.
Yes, there is a giant library within the police station in Resident Evil 2. I have no fucking idea why, but I just know that it's cool as hell, and it works with the level design of having the two zombies on two different planes and having to escape them both. It's clever, it's good, it's fun. There is not a lot that is clever or good or fun about the original Resident Evil to me. It is a lot of paper thin cardboard characters who, and again, I don't need well-developed characters to enjoy Resident Evil, but I need somebody who's like fun. Give me some quips, give me some funny jokes or some chemistry with the characters, but like they are really banking on you being invested in the mystery of this main character and the fact that she doesn't have any memory and like you're just the movie's priorities lie squarely with Alice in her relation to the plot. And I don't care that Alice isn't a character in the games because you can just make somebody and then throw them in there and then you can do whatever you want with them. Like that's fine. That's whatever, you know? But like what am I supposed to get out of Mila Jovovich in this fucking movie or any of these fucking movies? She is literally just there to facilitate action and look pretty. And look, I can think of many worse ways to spend an hour and a half than looking at a pretty woman. But my God, you gotta develop some fucking standards to go along with that, dude. Otherwise, just go on Google Images and then sit there for 2 hours because it just doesn't have sauce. Like the zombie makeup in this movie is actually kind of terrible. Like
Yeah,
all of the ways in this in ways that this like dresses itself up, it feels like it takes away from its own identity. The villain being the Red Queen AI just feels so like it feels so far into sci-fi that it just negates the appeal of what I think this is supposed to be. And going through the hive is just not particularly interesting. Like, yeah, the laser grid sequence is kind of cool and all, and it has a really silly moment where he falls into a pile of meat chunks. But that idea alone does not really a fun movie make. I just didn't really get anything from this.
it's at least like getting some of the fundamentals of what these movies should be in theory. You've got people moving from room to room, and there's scary things and discoveries in the different rooms, and we got to get through the facility to escape. Sure, that's a fine setup. It's very Event Horizon in that way. Event Horizon is a much better movie that Paul
Yes,
W.S.
yes, it
Anderson
is.
made. Rest in peace, Sam Neill.
Ugh,
But
R.I.P.
what this movie also gets right is that these movies are fun when people are killing zombies. Like
Yes, yes.
when the room is full of extras who are committing to the bit and people are doing fun stunt work, these movies can be fun to watch.
The
However,
issue with that is the ratio of the amount of time that these movies spend actually having people combat the zombies, which even at its most favorable is shockingly low. Like shockingly.
you have the liquor in this movie, which is a bad CGI
Yeah,
creature
ugly.
that just pales in comparison to the practical effects. Like there's this one scene where they're in this big, like very steely, dark lit room, and there's just dozens of zombies, and this action scene goes on forever of all these little interactions happening of like Rain is killing people and Spence is like trapped under this thing and he's having a kick at this one zombie that's trying to get him. And it's like when the production design is on point and when the extras are there and when there's little pockets of action happening that you can cross cut between, you can make this movie fun and tense and interesting. But we often just spend a lot of time going back and forth with information that is incomplete or fully complete for reasons unknown. Like when I tell you, one of my favorite things about this entire film series is that there's a moment where the computer boy in this movie, who's just one of the worst actors I've ever seen, the guy has no juice.
Sauceless, so sauceless.
When this computer boy is like, you got to look out for the Red Queen. She was designed in the image of the head scientist's daughter who died. And I was like, that seems like a lot of exposition. And we spend so much time never elaborating on this, never seeing that guy that supposedly did this. And so you think, huh, that's weird. Weird that they didn't do anything with that long explanation
God,
of the
so
Red Queen,
weird.
huh?
It would be even weirder if they took 5 movies to revisit this exact concept and tie this loop, almost like it was part of the grand design the whole time, you guys. That said, they're just what I think about when I think about the first Resident Evil movies, I think about tedium. Is that like whenever like the end there's like a scene near the end of this movie where one character is clearly like doing the zombie sacrifice thing where it's like, oh, you gotta leave me behind, and it's just like
It's computer guy.
this movie is not prioritizing its characters in such a way that this extremely long, protracted scene of this guy's self-sacrifice necessitates in any way. It's just like, you as a movie do not care about this character. Why do I, as an audience member, care enough to last throughout this 5 minutes of waiting for this guy and Alice to be like, oh, but I'm gonna save him. And he's like, no, but don't. She's like, but I wanna. And he's like, no, but don't do it. Just go instead. And it's like trying to get wrapped up in these things that are getting in its own way. And I'm like, even if, even if this movie adhered to its own goals, I still probably wouldn't like it. But the thing is that it really doesn't. It keeps stopping itself. It keeps like the characters will go a certain distance. You'll see where they go on the little map of the hologram, which Jesus fucking Christ, if there's one goddamn thing I'm sick of after seeing these movies. It's 3D projections of goddamn holograms of the goddamn hive, which is in every single one of these movies, in every different location they go around the world. There is a hive that they have to go into, and it is built in the exact same way, and you see it in the exact same way, and it's shot in the exact same way. It's infuriating.
And it's
But
got as far as the sci-fi of these movies go, I don't know, Red Queen and everything included. It's got what Stephen King called the Night Stalker problem, where the Night Stalker is a movie that starts out as a normal murder mystery, but
yeah,
then you find out that the guy that committed the murder is a vampire, and the
yes,
police detective has to go fight the vampire. But then they made a TV show out of it where the whole premise was that this dude is gonna fight a new monster every episode, and then it becomes silly.
yes,
Uh, and these movies have that problem where the
for sure.
premise of it that there's a secret laboratory under this mansion in Raccoon City that is Umbrella's base of operations is, yes, it's campy, yes, it's silly, but I can ride with it because that's what this one movie is doing. But then all the other movies have another hive somewhere else.
Yep, always.
There's a hive on a boat, Jake.
It's a
We'll
big
get
one
there.
too. It's
We'll
yeah, we'll
get
get
there.
there. The thing is that the one thing I will say about the original Resident Evil that is the biggest backhanded compliment I could possibly give it, it is by a measurable distance the best edited of these six movies, and the editing is pretty poor. I think about the introduction of the STARS unit finding Mila Jovovich's character. That entire sequence is incomprehensible. Like the way that it cuts as these characters are like aiming the guns at her is just it's nonsense visually. It's complete nonsense. And it's not always like that, but it is like whenever the camera has to move, essentially. Like it's just a lot of like there's a lot of workmanlike direction in this, but it isn't workmanlike direction that ever really accomplishes much. It's a movie that I probably dislike more than it is actually bad. But at the same time, there's just not a lot of note in it. There's not a lot of it where I can be like, yeah, even this really bad thing is really notably bad. It's like, no, it's all just kind of boring. Like again, the laser grid sequence is nifty and funny, but like it's also something that this franchise can't fucking stop milking every single time they get the fucking chance. But
Yeah, that's the thing about so one of the biggest failures of these movies is that everything good about them overstays their welcome and becomes intolerable. Every good idea they've ever had, they just try to milk it dry. And so Apocalypse then is an interesting prospect because this is, as a sequel, it's a movie that attempts to I love that you're already cracking. It's a movie that attempts to expand the scope a little bit. And so after they break out of the hive, we're starting immediately where the first movie ends. So there are strike teams of stars descending on Raccoon City as the zombie outbreak has broken out of the hive and is spreading through Raccoon City. And so we meet a bunch of whole new characters who are going to go to a bunch of whole new locations and have wholly new problems disconnected from the previous film. And the thing about that is that Resident Evil Apocalypse actually is a really fun and funny movie to me. No, nothing, the tone established itself pretty quickly. When shout out to Charmed alumni Oded Fair
yep.
is introduced by him jumping out of a helicopter, guns akimbo, shooting down into a crowd of zombies on a rooftop. But the thing is, not to belabor the point or give away anything too early, you're just gonna get tired of people spraying an endless array of bullets into a direction after a while with these films. But I will say, I will praise this movie Apocalypse for having what I would say is a better cast of characters than the first one. Because even though these characters are not exactly like fleshed out, they at least have recognizable persona and, costume design to them, especially characters like Jill, who I love her introduction in this movie. It's so freaking goofy. She
Yeah.
walks into the police station and is immediately like putting bullets in zombie heads. When a funny thing about these movies is that there's a point where the status quo of the apocalypse is not quite established, and so Jill walking in and shooting random people in the head is actually commented on as being strange, even though we're supposed to think it's cool because we know what's going on. And so
Yeah.
this movie has a funny tone to it, where it's characters doing cool things, but then extras in the background looking at it like it's strange, and that's interesting to me.
So this is one of the worst edited movies I've ever seen. Um,
Absolutely.
it is visually incomprehensible whenever the camera moves at all. And it's like the first movie had its moments where it kind of oscillated tempos, and sometimes it worked better than it didn't. Here, this is just obscenely poorly filmed. Like there is not like I do genuinely struggle to understand how this could theoretically be enjoyed by someone. Not in the sense that, like, there are silly things that happen in it. And yeah, there's some like moments of action that are like, oh, haha, that's funny. But it also, unfortunately, starts the trend that these movies are going to follow, which is the first like 10 minutes of them are bad, but they are enjoyably silly. Like it sets a precedent, and you're like, okay, if it keeps being somewhat like this, then I can kind of get on board. The problem is that they all stop abruptly after that 10 minutes ends, and then it's an hour straight of tedium. And then the final 15 minutes becomes so completely fucking ridiculous that it's just like, okay, sure, I suppose. That was kind of funny. But there's like an hour and 15 minutes in between these two more interesting points that you have to suffer through. And boy, howdy, do I mean suffer through it, because this movie is nothing but very obnoxious characters, very loudly shooting guns in directions, and the camera going, ah, ah, and just there's nothing fun about this. There's nothing kinetic about this. And I get how this sounds. I get how I sound like a spoil sport. It's like, how couldn't you enjoy when the military guys with the guns come in and do the pew pew to the zombies? And it's like, I don't know, because we've been living in the cultural saturation of zombies since I was a fucking child, and it hasn't ended yet. So I have been seeing this brand of visual catharsis my entire fucking life, and you have to be just a little bit, a notch, a tiny bit above mediocre for me to actually enjoy it, because otherwise it's, and I'm gonna use this word, and I hate hearing this word these days because nobody fucking uses it right. And it's a word we use frequently. It's the word is slop. And the thing is that I fucking hate it when other people use this word, is because they say it because when something is mediocre or bad, they just call it whatever slop. And it's like, you are misusing this word and you're making it mean nothing. Because slop is the thing that you mix together and feed to pigs because you don't give a fuck about any of it. There's nothing about the construction of slop that is intentional beyond being slop for the slop pile. That's its purpose. It's the silent abyss. That's what this movie is that it doesn't have any intentionality to any of it. Like, this feels like it was edited and shot by two different people because it partially was. Because they never get enough coverage of anything to be satisfying. I'm sorry I have fucking standards. Excuse the shit out of me. But the fucking central middle, the second act of this movie that lasts so goddamn long. I don't care how many silly Guns Akimbo moments we have. I don't care how many vaguely quasi-racist things that they have Mike Epps say in this movie that made me very uncomfortable multiple times. But whatever. That was at least kind of funny. The rest of it?
There's a
Oh, for
I
fuck's sake,
like
just
to
play
call
the
it
fucking video games. Jesus.
Mike Epps' character in these movies suffers from a phenomena that I like to call "that's how we do it in Motown" syndrome,
Ooh,
which
somebody get on
is
TV tropes and
one of my favorite like weird, impossibly racist moments in any piece of media that I've ever experienced is actually the fighting game Injustice 2, because if you play as Cyborg in that game, they do not know how to write this character. So they just keep having him like say black signifiers. One being, that's how we do it in Motown, or
that
something like that. I don't know.
that's fucking crazy.
And so
Holy shit.
it's a bad, it's a very vulgar thing, so I don't do it often, but it's perfect for bad genre fiction like this,
A
to look
hundred
at these
percent.
black characters that only exist to like remind the audience that they're black and a portion of this audience is black people, because you have like Mike Epps in this movie. Who's in the next one? Ashanti in the next
Yep,
movie,
yep.
because this was the period in the early 2000s where they were just like, well, we have to put some kind of black celebrity in every horror movie so that
Hmm.
black audiences will show up to go see it. That's why
The modern
Busta
equivalent
Rhymes,
of the including something in China because you want to sell it to the Chinese market. Like it's the same thing.
it's the
Cynical.
Busta Rhymes and Halloween thing
Yep,
where
yep,
you
yep,
get
yep, yep,
that
yep.
so that you get that share of the market. And I make fun of it in very vulgar terms because I find it extremely cynical. And this
And it
character
is
is just
vulgar. Like it's, vulgar means come from vulgar problems, of which this movie has more than a few, frankly. But like that's the thing is that it's like this movie has one mode and it just never changes. And I just again, I can't like and there's a difference. Like when people say that something like, oh, I don't know, Mad Max Fury Road is like a real, foot on the gas kind of movie that just never lets it up, is that it's like to some extent you're right. But I do feel like you often forget that that movie does dispense its action piecemeal. It lets its moments breathe. It just lets them last a really fucking long time and then gives you a moment to go, and then it goes back. And then you get another moment to go, it's pacing. It's good. It's not just, oh, weird 2000s techno music, blah, 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 blah. Oh, she's got to escape, and oh, there's the T virus thing, and it transformed Eric Mabius from the last movie into fucking Nemesis, and oh, you remember Nemesis from the game, right? Oh, wow. It's like, I mean, I guess, sure,
fair,
okay.
and fair. It's one of those adaptational choices I just say, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's like that's it's nice that we're getting lip service to an iconic thing in the franchise. You did in fact play the games, but this whole movie is just dead air to me. It's poorly made, it's poorly constructed. To me, this is the worst of all of these movies just because it has the least it has the least to do. It has the least to say. There's the least to enjoy. Like it is just poorly edited shitty 2000s action that does not relent until it's over. It has no like its moments of silliness are so few and far in between that I get nothing out of it. Like there's so much of these movies that like these people who like them constantly are like talking about them as though they're these like mile a minute like cheesy like fun little movies, and it's like, did you all forget about all of the dead air that's in these fucking movies where nothing is fucking happening
They're
and no
distracted
one
by
is doing
Alice.
anything?
They're distracted by Alice and Jill having a queen off.
And that's the funny thing about this is that with every progressive movie, it feels like Alice gets less and less interesting the more and more we find out about her because she ends up like she is such like she's not even a reactive character. You just find out things about her that you didn't previously know, and it doesn't inform her character. Like she doesn't act differently in any of these movies. She does not have a moment where she changes course or has to make a decision that's ultimately the result or a culminating point of little character beats or things. It's just it's she meets a bunch of other people and they end up being a team until they stop being a team, and then that's it. That's what it is.
Something that also makes these films inferior to the usual fare is that this is the first one where you get evil scientist man,
Hmm.
evil umbrella man,
Yep.
and there are four, three different evil umbrella men spread across this franchise. And like this first one, serviceable for what the story is trying to do because it's a
Hmm.
very straightforward, like, I'm the evil scientist man. I've hatched all these plans to,
Which Resident Evil game series, no stranger to that kind of villain. There's a bunch of them in there, and they're fun.
yeah, the conspiratorially minded scientist man who wants to like watch the world burn as a product of his
I
experiments.
want to progress beyond human evolution because I am
Yeah.
vaguely European and evil. Ha 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 ha. Like
Yes, the
that's yeah.
vaguely evil Eastern European uh evil scientist man, which is great for like atomic age worship atomic age horror
Sure.
movie worship, but it's just it's
Dim
okay
Diminishing
because
returns. Like the best thing I can do to illustrate what watching Resident Evil Apocalypse is like is tell you that this movie does in fact have two credited cinematographers and count it, four credits for additional directing. Do you know what that means? Because it means that this movie was shot and shot and shot and shot and then amalgamated in editing, and that's why it looks and feels the way that it does, is because so many people had their hands on this, and so many different people were trying to put things together, just because it's like this movie feels like a nothing but a highlight reel of reshoots of a better movie that doesn't exist. That's it.
but the funny thing is we're about to start realizing the pattern because something I realized when attempting to watch all these movies pretty sequentially from one another is that we're going to fall into this trap pretty quickly. And this next movie, Extinction, is where this trap begins to be laid, which is that the end of one movie does all these ninth hour twists and turns
Uh-huh.
to set up the next one. And then we spend the first 5 to 10 minutes of the next movie having to have what movie we're actually going to be watching explained to us instead. Because
It sets up a status quo only to immediately demolish it the first thing that happens in the next movie.
literally the first frames of Extinction have us in a completely inexplicable scenario where the second movie ends with Alice escaping the Umbrella facility, except Umbrella wanted her to escape, except her friends have now gotten inside positions at Umbrella, I guess. So Alice wants to use her insider position at Umbrella to take the institution down from the inside, I guess. But doesn't really matter because we have a new plot. It's new plot time. And the plot of Extinction is that congratulations, we've reached Mad Max, or more specifically, we've actually reached Army of the Dead 15 years ahead, which is
I
very
said
funny.
this many times watching the movie. I was like,
This
wow,
is,
this is Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead before Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, and it sucks for the exact same reasons.
I think Army of the Dead is okay. But anyway,
And I think it's a boring ass snooze fest, exactly fucking like this movie, which is the best of these movies. This is the best Resident Evil movie, and it sucks. I don't really care for anything that happens in it. I don't it does not contain anything that I actively enjoy, but it is like the most functional as a movie. Like it is the easiest to just sit and watch and kind of passively enjoy a little bit, just because it is adequately quite silly. Not silly enough, mind you. It's a bit too dour in like visually to be able to maintain that kind of panache. But at the same time, it is a movie that is constantly like actually on the move. Like characters are going places in this, and it feels like the setting is way less of a limitation because that's and honestly, that might be the biggest problem with the first two Resident Evil movies is the setting feels like a limitation of those movies. And the Resident like settings are what Resident Evil is. It's the haunted mansion, it's the scary Baker house, it's the European town from Resident Evil 8, it's the hospital from Resident Evil 9. Like they are where they take place. And just doing away with the idea of identifiable locations on the whole for Extinction is the smartest choice it makes because it's just like, hey, let's be a convoy for, Mad Max Fury Road, but the D minus edition and just kind of go around and we've got fucking Ali Larter showing up in this movie. Shout out to Heroes, Ali Larter. We've also got Ashanti in this, as you mentioned, and of course we have Kmart Kmart.
Kmart.
There's a line of dialogue in this film where Alice talks to this woman and she's like, they call me Kmart because that's where they found me. And then she elaborates on her situation. And then she's like, I don't like to be called my normal name because it reminds me of my dead parents. That's what she says. That's the dialogue.
So this is also where we get into a problematic element of these movies, which is that they keep trying to make Alice a mom for some reason. Well, they don't, I should say they don't keep trying to do this. This movie flirts with it. And I mean, the second movie also has the little girl who's the nice scientist man's daughter who's gonna die of the T virus. But they write her off in this movie for a different little girl character, which is really funny. And
There's something so like, there's this fucking thing with these movies where it's like a boardroom executive's idea of a cheesy B movie, but like they don't actually understand what makes those fun to watch. Like on paper, like the villain in this movie or the villain in any of the movies should be again like the cackling Eastern European like mad scientist, or for example, just transpose the villain from the games from like Code Veronica. Like take one of them. There's like a set of twins from that game, and like one of them is this like vaguely kind of transphobically coded character who's kind of a cross-dresser, but he's like really vampy and cheesy and like dresses as his dead twin sister and stuff, and he laughs like ha. There's nothing that fun in any of these movies. Like, they think that cheesy fun is like a guy mugging for the camera, and it's like, I'm sorry, but this is not enough to entertain me. Like, my standards are simply higher than, I'm Albert Wesker, and I'm going to smugly look at you and cock my smile to one side as I say something vaguely sinister about a corporation or something like that. I don't fucking know. And it's like, I mean, I fucking guess. Like, you gotta, that's the thing, is that what these movies forget above all else is personality. They don't have personality. Like, again, Mila Jovovich, very, very attractive lady. What does she give you as an action star? What does she present to you that is supposed to be likable, endearing, interesting? I don't get anything from this person that they utilize about as effectively well as a fucking Barbie doll. That at the beginning and ending of every single movie, they just have to get her naked. They just always have to do it. They have to give her a set of scrubs that just covers one like tiny itty little bitty piece here and one tiny itty little bit piece here, but shoot her from the side constantly so that you see everything that the fucking weird smock that they put her in doesn't cover. And it's just it really goes to show you what the priorities of these movies actually are. It's like, does she look hot? Is she beating ass? And it's like, okay, I guess that's cool. But once again, there are a lot of movies out there where hot women beat ass and the movies are still good.
yeah, because I mean, we can't defend how badly these movies are edited. And
I mean, like, even if you want to make the argument that this is a deliberately employed avant-garde technique, the deliberately employed avant-garde technique needs to accomplish something, you guys. Using the avant-garde technique does not an avant-garde movie make. Just because you're choppily editing the action and you're like, whoa, whoa. And from this movie on, this uses one of my absolute least favorite post-production techniques employed in all of cinema, which is the post-production zoom. It looks fucking awful every single time. It's so obvious. I actually had to point out to Rhiannon where they were. So I was like, whenever I freak out when a random camera movement happens like this and it looks a little janky, This is why. And I had to like slow it down and be like, you see how the camera here was just like really steady and then it just kind of floated by and then like the screen resolution didn't really change and then it got like weirdly less good in quality? Yeah, that's fucking why. It's because the coverage in these movies is so astonishingly poor that they have to do post-production zooms, and this was before you could shoot movies in 4K, so the resolution is going to go down when you crop the image and still keep it at full screen, which is why these movies look like dog ass. They look terrible, including this one. They all have this weird, stiff employment of their editing that just does not flow well with action. I don't understand how you can enjoy this as an action movie because, again, you need technique to be able to accomplish that. If you just throw around all these random erratic edits and everything, like what is supposed to be satisfying or cathartic about the motion on display on like an animal lizard brain level? How am I supposed to respond to that in a way that makes me go, oh fuck yeah, she got that zombie, if I can't fucking see her punch it? It's like they're just like and she's like and you can't see her hit it, and it's like I want to see her hit the zombie but the camera doesn't let me. And if you want to argue that that's an intentional choice that these movies are employing, you have lost the plot. Because if you can't see the kinetic action, what's the point in including the kinetic action? These are not meant to be these form challenging things. They are populist blockbuster entertainment, guys. What are we talking about?
The big like defense that I saw of the one that we're about to get to that's really going to get us in trouble. They all prescribe this like dream-like, unreal quality to it, and that the movies are like meta about being unreal and simulacra and whatever the hell.
My
And I'm
God,
like,
watch a
listen,
Wachowski
man.
sisters movie. Jesus, fuck you all. Oh
And
my
I'm,
God.
yeah, and I'm like, look, I see you, but I raise you John Wick 4 where you can actually see things happen.
I,
Like you
it's
can still have artifice while also being able to see things happen.
it all like that's the thing is that whenever I hear defense of these movies, it is impossible for me to not just hear people arguing for why I should have lower standards. And I'm sorry, but I don't want to do that. That's not who I am. I can't change that. If a movie has poorly shot action, I cannot will myself to enjoy the action in it. It does not magically become a synthesis that makes me be like, ah, yes, I see the vision now. It's like, no, we're just arguing in circles, talk like we are giving these things an excuse to be worse. And I don't see it. I have read so many people trying to rationalize their way out of like why these movies are made the way that they're made and trying to justify them. And I know that this is not the most like charitable read on those things, but it always sounds like cope to me. It always reads as people trying to chase their own tail to justify why these things are better than they actually are. And I just
And
don't get it.
I want to say something because this is a thought that I've had for some time, and I feel like this episode is a good time to like put out there.
Air the laundry.
There's something about bad filmmaking that can actually be really effective at a movie being able to get its story across.
Hmm. A
And
lot of
there,
amateur filmmaking is very much like that.
yeah, yes, that's the big one, is that amateur filmmaking and, shoddy effects or low quality camera transfers all contribute to the aesthetic of what your movie is. So
Hmm.
even filmmaking choices that some would consider traditionally poor or subpar, or are even just like limited in their scope, can ultimately build to something greater than the sum of its parts.
Yes.
And best example that I always use for something like this is the Blair Witch Project.
Thank you. Exactly.
Because like that is unacceptable filmmaking, but that's
Yes.
the point.
Like the Blair Witch Project as an idea is genius because it is intentionally stripped back and does not adhere to strictly cinematic rules, and that's why it's more convincing. You know what, Jen? This is a perfect like parallel to talk about with fucking Mathcore, which is about breaking traditional music like rules and norms in order to accomplish something that following the rules cannot. Blair Witch Project, for example, is something that you can't have that movie without shooting it like the way that it is, else it ceases to be that. The Resident Evil movies are so deeply entrenched in normal, typical, average blockbuster filmmaking that this transformative element, it doesn't exist. It doesn't like it is a half measure at best. They do not transpose their meaning. They do not like effectively translate what they are into something else. They still want to be fun, cheesy action movies. And at the end of the day, it ends up being a snake eating its own tail. And I just can't understand that or get on board with it because I've seen, again, I would love for there to be a Blair Witch Project style version of what these things are, where the poor filmmaking is actually able to heighten what is behind it. Because theoretically, as someone who believes in the transformative power of art and its potential, I do believe that it's possible. I'm also saying that nowhere in these movies is such a phenomenon found. Nowhere.
Yeah, and to use a more mainstream example and one that kind of skirts the line of acceptable and shoddy and, DIY in a way that people that defend these movies like to articulate this as being, look at Night of the Living Dead, bro.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
black and the black and white, the limited locations, the plainness of the makeup job, all those elements of texture add to the tension that the movie is going for.
Yes.
Whereas, like, I'm sorry, guys, it's just bad editing.
Well,
It's
that's the
just
thing is
bad
that
blocking, and it's just bad editing.
think about the kind of movie that Night of the Living Dead it is, and think about this. Think about how unique it is, how contained it is, how claustrophobic it is, all of the qualities that make it stand out from similar films like it. On in broad strokes, tell me how the Resident Evil movies are different from, when the Fast and Furious movies are trying to do what they're trying to do. Because they're not that far away from each other in terms of goals. They're supposed to be action blockbuster spectacle. And again, like, if you're going to see this kind of very straight-laced meat and potatoes kind of stuff, I don't know why you wouldn't go to Fast and Furious instead. Those aren't even movies that I really like or care for, but they have a function, they have a purpose, and I understand why they are made the way that they are. This, on the other hand, is just so unfathomably contradictory. I can't really understand it. And I'm trying. That's why I'm frustrated. It's not because I disagree with people, it's because I am incapable of understanding their headspace, and that drives me insane. It makes me feel crazy because a lot of the time when people talk about these movies in the kind of elevated terms that they do, it's like, okay, I know you know how criticism works. So why aren't the pieces connecting? It's driving me crazy. And we're
But the
only
nice
in
thing
the
about
first
it,
three of these.
the nice thing about it though, for me at least, was that after my least favorite of these, I think, is Afterlife
It's
3D.
after
Um,
Afterlife, I will say, has the most amount of instantly wasted potential. Like, it's a movie that threatens to be like, oh, is this gonna be like the first one of these to be like silly and enjoyable and ridiculous on a level I can appreciate? And then it just promptly takes its own shotgun, points it at both of its feet, blows them both off, and then it hobbles itself to the fucking finish line because this movie sucks.
they set it up as
Sucks.
like Alice has an army of clones that she's going to use to attack Umbrella. And then
Fucking ridiculous.
they do that in the beginning. All of the clones die immediately. Alice gets
What a
debuffed
bunch of
by
bullshit.
Alice gets debuffed by Wesker, and then 6 months later, for no reason, Alice goes back to Alaska to look for the safe haven that she was looking for in the last movie, which she apparently just forgot about on the way to go kill Umbrella. Um, and that's where the movie starts, is that she tries to go to Alaska, and then she crashes a plane on top of a building, and they spend an hour of the movie on the top of this building, and then
In the
uh
ugliest city that has ever been rendered on film.
ugly, ugly. We get the biggest character assassination of any of these characters in the games, which is Chris, who, because they got the guy from Prison Break, I
I will
guess.
say, Wentworth Miller as fucking Chris Redfield is an inspired casting choice. They just waste it really hard.
Is Chris like an anti-hero type in the
No, he's
games?
like the default like hero buff man. Like he's
He's
the
Soldier
very
Boy. Well, not
uncomplicated good.
Soldier Boy from The Boys, but he's
Well,
like,
no,
he's
I mean
Soldier Man.
and I mean like honestly, Homeboy from Supernatural would also be a very solid casting choice for Chris Redfield. But I love how in this movie you're introduced to him in that little cage that they're keeping him in, and they do not justify why they are keeping him in there. It's literally that the main guy is just like, I don't know, don't trust him, and it's like,
That's
based
it.
on
We
what,
never
bro?
find out. We never find out why they have Chris in prison.
Like, why are you even establishing character motivations if they just don't mean anything? Because that's the thing, man, is that with these, specifically with the ones that Paul W.S. Anderson comes back to
Yes, because
direct,
now,
because
yeah, we didn't mention this before,
yeah,
but
have to mention
two,
this.
2 and 3 are each different directors than Paul W.S. Anderson. The
Mhm,
second is Alexander Witt. The third is directed by actually respectable filmmaker Russell Mulcahy of
mhm.
Highlander fame.
Yes,
And
yes, good movie.
But now it's Paul W.S. Anderson back in the director's chair and this is just all him and his scripts. And so now
Hmm.
Alice is fully OC Please Don't Steal territory for the rest of these movies. And
Every
Paul W.S.
introduction to
Anderson.
every movie is, my name is Alice, and I worked for the Umbrella Corporation, and I'm going to
Yeah,
try
her
and
her
narrate.
cool action girl catchphrase is "My name is Alice."
Damn. Wow. That's so much fun to repeat and so fun to say. I can't wait for that to become instantly iconic. Haha. But
Um,
Afterlife here is just kind of exactly what I expected, which is to say, just a whole load of nothing. It's a lot. Like, here's another thing. This movie's ugly as sin. It's so
ugly.
gray. Like, take out the fact that the 3D aspect has made this age just appallingly bad when it comes to any of its CG. But like, just the coloring in here is like, I don't know, man. Call me crazy, but in my silly action movies, I kind of like there to be a little bit more visual panache than this. This is just so just it's so worn. It's the aesthetic of just like concrete, and I don't get it. Like fucking it's the same reason that I don't get along with something like Inception, which is an obviously much more accomplished looking movie, but still nonetheless reminds me a lot of dry, solid surfaces, concrete, and fucking like unremarkable buildings and cityscapes. And I'm just like, I don't know, this just doesn't really do anything for me on a creative level. So naturally, when you do it really, really poorly, I'm also not really going to get on board with it. Like there are moments where you can tell that Paul W.S. Anderson is trying to do something. Like, for instance, the beginning where we have that one little scene in Tokyo where you get that like top-down view of the street and it starts raining and it's like a decent looking image for these movies, frankly,
Yeah.
but it lasts so long and it's like, hey, I wonder if this is going to be when the zombie outbreak happens in this particular location. Is this going to be when this happens? And it's like, and it's just lingering and waiting, and I'm like, delaying catharsis is not the same thing as tension. And I feel like that Paul W.S. Anderson doesn't understand the difference between these two things as a filmmaker, because this is a constant problem that these three final movies run into, is that
Yeah.
like he thinks that tension is just waiting for more action to happen. Like I actually have to be invested in the possibility of an outcome for tension to be there. Like these people are all superheroes. They're all Marvel characters to me. They all just kind of like fly around and jump kick and backflip, and it's very airless. The wire work is just really stiff. Like fucking, I'm not expecting Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I'm really not. But like, we gotta do a little bit more than this. Like, when Alice is just like literally standing there and just does a 360 flip with no applied force whatsoever, it's like, that doesn't look cool. It just looks stupid.
I'm glad you used that word because my thesis on these movies is pretty simple. There's a fine line between ridiculous and stupid.
Yep, 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 yep.
I like ridiculous,
Mm-hmm.
don't like stupid,
Agree.
and this one is the first one that is just fully stupid from back to front.
Yep, 100%. Like it is and you feel all 97 minutes of it, frankly. Like it is a very poorly paced movie. And like even by these movies already kind of unacceptable pacing standards, it's a little bit egregious. And like for
What
all
did you think of their not pyramid head that they whipped out for this one?
man, that fight scene's rough. Oh man, like
The Axe Man.
it's so obviously trying to be like it's so like look at how cool this is. Look at how cool these characters are. And again, I'm sorry, but like trying and failing to be cool is just embrace being lame. Like embrace it. Like it feels like these movies are in denial about what they are. And it just frustrates the shit out of me. It's like I don't understand why we're trying so hard for us to be like, "Oh, isn't this awesome? Isn't this badass?" And it's like, "No.
A
I
thing
mean,
to
no."
a thing to note and a thing that I think does genuinely drag these movies down is that Capcom was pretty involved in what was like allowed to be in these movies. Oh yeah,
Oh,
because Wesker was gonna be the villain of Extinction, but Resident
that
Evil
makes sense.
5 was just about to come out, and they didn't want the movie to spoil that Wesker was the main villain. Because up until this point in the games, Wesker had not appeared again.
Yeah, yeah.
So they were like, you can tease Wesker and do your own little version of him, but don't have him be the main villain yet because we don't want to ruin the vibe of Resident Evil 5.
Which, in hindsight, like that explains the decision. It also does not make it any less incredibly fucking stupid because
No, it's really stupid,
it's like
but I can at least
why even
like
bother?
I can at least like see what happened there. The thing that I can't see what happened is like after the second movie, the third movie just completely forgets that Jill exists, which is again
Hmm.
a Resident Evil 5 doesn't exist yet problem.
Yep.
But it's really egregious when you're watching this movie if you're just like waiting for somebody to mention Jill and it just never happens. And so I got about 40 minutes in before I looked over at Jared and was like, "Where's Jill?" And he just started laughing at me.
It's like she has been permanently replaced by Claire. That's what happened to her. That's it. Pretty much. Like
Um,
at some point you have to even question the utility in naming these characters. Like I'm not even talking about naming the characters what they're named in the games. I mean naming them at all. Like it just doesn't even feel like it matters at some point, especially in the movie after this.
so this is the one that's going to get us in trouble
Fucking
because
apparently. Which is so
I,
funny because the most notable thing about Resident Evil Retribution to me is how completely similar it is to the rest of these movies. In broad strokes, it is exactly the same.
but I knew that this was the one that like our people that, we admire and respect that like
Yup.
these movies really latched onto. And I wonder if it's just because we have our baby girl Leon S. Kennedy in it. But the defense of this movie that I've seen, or the thing that I just like kept getting fixated on is the idea that this movie in particular is like dreamlike and about simulacra and whatever. When that's just the first 15 minutes, guys, and then it's just like the other ones.
It's what I'm
What the
talking
hell
about.
are
The
we
first 10
doing?
minutes of these movies will flirt with some fun ideas and then instantly disappear up their own ass into being tedious.
And I like the place that this movie starts in because it's genuinely strange
Yeah,
and
you don't
trying to
really know
do
what's
something
happening at first in a
off-putting.
way that's like, am I like curious about what's happening in this right now? Because like I am a little.
But then it's just, it's a clone.
It's well, I mean, it's the first explanation that you think it's going to be, and it's like, oh, it's an underground umbrella facility where they're doing all the clones, and then they're cloning all the people that you've seen before and building all the things, and then they just just do Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. Like they got the fucking editor of the movie. It's the same guy.
No!
It's the same guy. And it's like the lighting in the fucking kitchen is the same as it is in Zack Snyder's Dawn
Oh
of the
wait,
Dead.
actually, now that I'm looking at it, this guy, Niven Howie, edited a couple of these movies.
And I mean, it makes sense, I suppose, but it also doesn't really make sense if you want to make a meaningfully different movie because these are not. Which, I mean, there's a couple funny things that do happen in Resident Evil Retribution. For instance, turning Michelle Rodriguez into a resistance lib mom. Fucking hysterical,
That's
actually.
funny.
Like, actually funny. It's a shame she's in this movie for 2.5 minutes because it's way more focused on Alice and doing the half bank thing with like I mean it's just doing aliens. It's literally like the final third of this movie is just the final third of Aliens. There's nothing meaningfully different about it at all. It's
And I mean, visually, this one has a cleaner aesthetic to it
yeah,
than the
I would
previous
yes.
two
Yes.
do. This one has like a $60 million budget, and it shows because like
Hmm.
the costumes have real shine to them, and the cinematography has real shine to it. It's just a shame that whenever Mila Jovovich has to fight, all of a sudden the movie starts to suck because the editing is awful all the way up until the last scene in the movie when she does like the cool move where she kills Rain by shooting the ice. You literally can't even tell what's happening because it just has her pointing the guns and then it's just a shot of her pointing the guns down and shooting into the camera. So you can't tell what's happening from shot to shot. It doesn't matter.
And like there's a couple moments in this or a couple ideas where
Do
I'm
you
like
remember Las Plagas? Do
unfucking
you remember
fortunately.
Leon Kennedy?
Leon Kennedy in this fucking sucks. Like literally the only thing you have to do is give this man aura. Like that is the lowest possible bar and he's just like a guy. Like honest to God, the better choice in this is fucking Kevin Durand as Barry Burton. That
He's
casting
got
choice
real pull.
that casting choice is fucking genius. And frankly, it contains the only likable moment in the movie when they're about to gun him down. He tosses his gun in the air, gets shot and riddled with bullets, and then falls onto the floor. The gun falls next to him. He catches it, sits back up, and shoots them, and then gets killed. It's like, okay, that is the kind of admirably silly shit that I'm looking for in this movie. The problem is that it is 1 minute of 100 more. like, like again, just because this movie has a couple shining moments of a little bit of personality or something that you can meaningfully chuckle at, it doesn't make the 90% of the rest of the movie any more fun to sit through, particularly when it ends the way that it does. Oh my God, the climax of this movie is fucking interminable. Ugh.
Third Alice baby trap, by the way.
Ugh.
Um, because this movie just loves trying to make her a mother for some reason. But
It's
yeah,
the
the
best
ending of
way
the
to
movie.
add pathos. I mean, like honestly, it feels like this movie's approach to its story and themes feels like, the packet of like cheese product you have to mix in with the Velveeta Sturmac that you put in the microwave. It's like, yeah, I mean, I guess this is what you add to make pathos happen in your movie or whatever. But like, I'm sorry, I'm not moved by Alice's sudden predilection towards motherhood. Like, it just doesn't, like, why would I care? This is a nothing character in a nothing story, and I'm supposed to be like, oh my God, she's got a little girl now. It's like, I don't fucking, like, okay, sure, dude.
The
I don't
most
even like
impressive,
Newt in Aliens. Why the fuck would I like this?
the most impressive thing is that we still have new lows to reach because the funniest, the funniest moment, the thing that I laughed the most at any of these movies is okay. At the start of Afterlife, Wesker injects Alice and removes her powers.
Mm.
Then at the end of Retribution, he gives her powers back so that she can help him fight to save the last of humanity because he's holed up in the White House and is trying to defend everybody who's still left. And that's where Retribution ends, that we've got all our characters together. And the next movie is just going to be about defending the White House and saving the last of humanity.
If
And
you
this
did
movie
Assault on
start,
Precinct 13 in the White House with zombies, that's how you make a good fucking movie.
but then this movie starts and we get the explanation of the Red Queen and the doctor and all that. And, notice that his daughter's name is Alicia. Did you notice it? I wonder what this could be. Foreshadowing is a literary device
A,
where, and
tw
anyway.
a twist so telegraphed, it barely registers. Like you're just like, oh, I mean, yeah,
So
why
yeah,
wouldn't that be the case? Sure.
you'd be stupid to not make that the twist.
Precisely. Like it's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't really understand like
It would
emphasizing
make
this
more, it would
beat.
make less sense if this wasn't.
Yeah, precisely. I would be a little bit more confused. So it's very much it's treating its own telegraphed beats as like revelations, and you're just kind of like, sure, okay. I mean, if you somehow cared about this story, maybe this is meaningful to you, but
And then,
eh.
and then Alice wakes up in an empty White House without her powers because Wesker betrayed you, which is just they got lazy and didn't want to do the thing that they actually set up to do and just had to fall back on, okay, we start the movie with having Alice waking up in an empty room and figuring out what the plot is. And we're back to our Mad Max BS.
Yeah,
So
it's remarkably visually similar to 3.
the final chapter, I remember seeing Chris Stuckman's review at the time and him
Yep.
constantly complaining about how much they were clearly going for Fury Road's nachos. And I'm not gonna disagree, but this is clearly just more that they didn't know how to actually tell the story that they set up at the end of Retribution, so they just decided to do Extinction again.
Mm-hmm. More or
Because
less, it's
now
yeah.
it's you have to save the last members of humanity by where does she have to go? She has to go back to Raccoon City.
Yeah, where it all started. It's where it all is gonna end, you guys. We're going back. And now we
And
have the
then
real villain who comes in, and he's like not meaningfully different as a presence to Wesker in any way, shape, or fun. If anything, Wesker is a more fun villain.
I
Like
was
he's
gonna
at
say
least
he's a
silly.
clone of the villain from the third movie.
Yay.
It's the same guy, but it barely even registers because his characterization has completely changed. Clone BS aside, Like he's just not, it doesn't feel like the same character
No,
anymore
it's
because
just an excuse
he
to
just
like,
spends the whole movie barking orders at people. Whereas in the third movie, he's like a scumbag who's working around under
yeah.
Wesker. So he's fun to watch and he's
Hmm.
doing like Day of the Dead
He's
experiments
scheming.
on the zombies. Yeah, he's a
Yes.
schemer.
Oh
He's
yeah,
a
that one scene
schemer.
is ripped right from Day of the Dead. That one scene is just bub. Like it's the same fucking thing.
Which, not everybody has
Hey,
seen Day of the Dead. I gotta
at
admire
least
the
at
whole.
least they are including a beat from a real movie. I was thrilled to know that they actually watched movies for inspiration. I mean, like, these movies are so, like, self-congratulatory and navel-gazy that it's kind of hard for me to assume, like, they only exist in a vacuum to me. So the fact that whenever they actually show that they've, like, actually seen other zombie movies, it's like, oh, wow, humans made this. Now that can, I feel like that it is a mark in its favor. What isn't a mark in this movie's favor is how long the third act lasts. Oh my God, it just never ends. The villain just keeps not dying over and over and over again. And then the laser grid comes back, and then they're there for so long. Ugh.
This one has a lot of Mission Impossible juice to it,
Yes,
actually.
it
They're
does.
trying to
Yes,
do
it
all these
does.
big set pieces with these big props. There's one bit where somebody gets sucked into a fan that slices them apart. There's a bit where they're crawling through this tunnel, but it's like all these panels, and so people are getting like
Yeah.
shifted around, and that's kind of
There's
neat.
one sequence that's literally just the Battle of Helm's Deep with zombies, like except you can't see anything happening because it's not lit very well. And man, the vehicular combat, like when Alice is on top of vehicles in this movie and like fighting people, the edit, like, forget the fucking 180 rule, man. This is nonsense. Like, I don't even know how you, like, even if you're one of those people who's like, this movie is edited like an avant-garde film. I don't know how you can't call this a a poor implementation of that avant-garde tendency. Just because, I mean, it is incoherent, and I don't, like, pray tell, what narrative justification could exist for these fight scenes to be the way that they are beyond, like, I don't know, a protagonist actually being like half blind or something? I have no idea. Like, this is
I don't
not
know,
like,
man. I've seen the Book of Eli too. That movie looks gnarly as hell.
and the thing is that like, you know what movie I rewatched recently is Memento. Memento is a movie that deliberately structures itself in a way that is very difficult to follow on a moment-to-moment basis if it's the first time you're watching it, because it makes you sympathize with the main character's dilemma. You see the world through Guy Pearce's eyes, and that's how you experience it. Normally, you're supposed to edit a movie in order so that you know what happens. That's how the rules work. But Christopher Nolan broke those rules and thus accomplished something new. There is no Guy Pearce in this movie to justify why it is edited like this. If you want to be like, "Oh, Alice's mind is broke," shut up.
Stop it.
Shut
Get
up.
some help.
Sorry. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, we're talking out of our ass right now. Like, let's not. Mila Jovovich with old lady makeup is very funny. That I got a kick out of.
She looks she looks like Anna Wintour.
She does actually. Uh, and it's so funny how like the movies have spent so much time that like even though Alice is like this ultra powerful badass messiah Jesus lady, like the notion of like solving the world's problems at this far into the narrative is such a fucking joke that like the fact that this movie ends so cleanly and uncomplicated and how it's just like, and then everything was fine at the end,
And
it
then I
is
continue my mission to
genuinely
save the
comical.
world.
Like,
Oh,
oh wow, now it is just it's hysterical how there is no weight to any choice that is made in any of the stories of these movies, because by the time the ending rolls around, it's just like, well, Yep. Okay. I suppose everything is fine now.
And they save the best dropping of the ball for last because they spend this whole movie, because it's called the final chapter. They spend this whole movie being like, Alice, if you unleash they call it
The
the antivirus because it's a pun on the T virus. You know, get it?
anti
Antivirus. If you release the antivirus, it's probably going to kill you because you've got modified, you got the
because you
virus.
are the T virus, kind of.
Except they've already said over and over again that Alice is a special who specifically bonded with the T virus instead of becoming a zombie or whatever. But they still spend the whole movie being like, yo, the antivirus is going to kill you. But then at the end, it's like, oh, wow, the antivirus didn't actually kill you because
Oh
you're
my
special. And
God.
I'm like, oh my God, what did I think was going to happen?
It's just it's just frankly very lazy screenwriting just because when everything is so macro when it comes to the stakes, individual character choices just don't matter anymore. Like it becomes lost. You have to sift through these things like so with a fine-tooth comb in order to be able to find anything worth noting. And I don't see the value in putting forth the effort. It's just I could be doing so many other things than trying to unearth the extra half star or star I would get out of my rating for Resident Evil Retribution. Like, I just don't care enough. And like, if you do, look, there are plenty of stupid things that I love and stupid things that I do to waste my time and enjoy doing. I just don't have any fucking illusions about them either and try to make them into something that they're not. Like, the closest I will come to siding with people like the vulgar auteurist is over movies like Southland Tales. Because you know what? Southland Tales, there's no fucking movie that exists that's anything like that crackpot piece of shit. And I love it. There's no other person alive who is insane enough to have made that movie other than Richard Kelly. How on earth you could try to apply this level of reclamation to Resident Evil Afterlife? Dude, whatever. I mean, like, find something that's a little bit more interesting next time, just because, I don't know, it'll be more worth it, I guess. These stories remind me of the worst moments of like Kingdom Hearts games, where it's just like, let's just toss out buzzwords and say things that sound important in order to narratively justify why you're supposed to put this down now. And it's like, okay. Cool. I wanted to find something of value in this franchise. I really, really did. But the thing is that I walked away from it being like it's kind of a colloquial thing that we have with my friends is that one thing we did during COVID is that we watched the entire Halloween franchise, like all of them together. And we kind of came to the conclusion, it's like, man, Halloween's just one of the worst fucking franchises out there. There's like generously two and a half good movies and that entire conglomerate of films, and the rest of them are either really, really safe and boring or genuinely one of the worst horror sequels of all time. Like at least three of them exist in that franchise. But you know what? You know fucking what?
I can tell the difference in each one of them.
I can tell the difference in each one of them, and the franchise has Halloween in it. Resident Evil does not have a Halloween in it. There's not an entry that it's just like, ah yes, that one. That's the one that'll really do it for me. I just, like if like I don't see the value in this in the same way that I don't see a value in like I don't know. It's like these movies cease to be movies to me and they exist more as like magazine covers that happen to move and have zombies on them. It's like, yeah, sure, man.
It
And
really is
thus,
like it's nothing that I enjoy about like zombie movies, martial
no,
arts movies, action movies, like none of it actually translates.
rating. So, this is curious because I just had like no fun. Like, it was like genuinely quite unenjoyable. Every time we had to go back to another one of these, it was like, all right, slop for the slop mines. Let's go. And it did become exhausting. I did not have a very good time. That being said, this confirmed everything I've ever thought about these movies in a way that was so fundamentally unremarkable that I was kind of astonished at the lack of surprise I felt at how bad they were. Like, I had been preparing for these to be worse in my head, but instead they were really like, yeah, they're bad. They're awful. Don't get me wrong. Like, this is one of the least interesting franchises I've ever consumed, but they're also so unremarkable to me. There's nothing about them that gives, you know? And thus, after things like Ghostbusters, after things like Clarice, where it was just like, dude, I don't even know what there is to do or say about this. I mean, like, we're skirting along the edges of the silent abyss, but we're not quite there yet. So I have to say, I will match you here and hit you with a four. This doesn't quite get the five just because this was precisely as painful as I feared it would be and about nothing more than that. So,
If you want a good recommendation off the back of this segment, I've got one for you. And this
do it.
is even I'm actually fuck it. Punishment time. We're gonna do it, Jake. I've been mulling over this for weeks. I've been like, what is the good pick? I've been torturing myself for days over what this pick is gonna be because I've been wanting to do the like I've been wanting to match you on the emotional sadism and just be like, I want to find something that's gonna absolutely wreck Jake. But no, I think I need to prove the haters wrong. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna give you a good version of the Resident Evil movies. And it's one little picture from a man named Ryuhei Kitamura called Versus. And it's gonna be
Yes.
the most fun you've had all year. I guarantee it. And that's my pick.
Fuck yes. This was like, I think this was the
I'm
original first
standing
episode that you wanted to recommend that movie to me. And then we changed it at the last minute. And I was like, I really do want to get to that movie eventually.
I'm standing on my business that you can make a movie like this be good and show off good craftsmanship. And it's called Versus, and we're going to talk about it. I want
Okay.
a good sequence between recommendations for once.
So, my priorities for this round have not changed. Whether it's good or bad, I'm looking to hurt. And so, throughout this, Rhiannon and I both were just kind of like, what could possibly echo the magnitude of the lack of interest we have in this? What could possibly just like this isn't even about pain. This is about numbness. I wanted you to experience something that was basically a fucking sedative to your brain because that's more or less what this ended up being.
Oh
But I was
God.
like, but that's not quite enough. It needs to have an angle. There needs to be something particularly fucking unpleasant about it because that's what the Resident Evil movies lacked. It was like it missed the final edge that would skirt it over to that five-star rating. So that being said, I had to really rack my brain for something awful. And I thought, what's something that's just really emblematic of our moment? What piece of art exists that just emblematizes everything that sucks about the modern world? What will remind you of everything you hate? And perhaps some of the people you hate the most. On multiple levels, actually.
Oh
Because you see,
God.
at first, one I had in my back pocket that I ultimately decided against doing like at all was I was like, I think a unique sort of Achilles heel blow to Jen would be one of those Ryan Murphy shows like fucking Dahmer or fucking the Ed
Oh my
Gein one. Like
God.
one of those, but
Oh
I was
my
just like, there is
God.
something inherently immoral about like talking about those, in my opinion. Like, I think that the only thing that ever needs to be said about Dahmer is the Red Letter Media video on it. There need like because they are from there, because they have intimate knowledge of all of that stuff. That is the only thing that ever needs to be said about it. And frankly, going further than that, just kind of dumb. But Ryan Murphy, that's in the right direction, isn't it?
The evil gay man.
The evilest gay man that maybe exists.
The
And
evilest gay man in television, and we're talking about RuPaul's world we're living in.
but you see, Ryan Murphy's body of work is vast. Like
I
this,
know, so I'm scared. I don't know what it is yet.
and the thing is that it's like I'm also not someone who is going to say that things like, things as problematic or even straight up as bad as something like Glee can be. Glee's got its things about it that I think are at least noteworthy or worthy of dissection, but then again, the Mike the Snare video exists on that, and that's kind of the final moratorium that that show needs, so I don't feel like I could meaningfully add anything to the discussion. So I thought, what's the worst thing I've ever experienced from this dude? And there was only one answer. Only one answer hidden within one of the most fascinatingly awful franchises at this point that exists,
Is it
directly in the
time?
center of the gigantic shit sandwich that is American Horror Story, lies the next recommendation for you, Jen. And I'm so happy to tell you that you're going to be watching American Horror Story Cult.
No!
All of it, baby. Beginning
No!
to end. You get
No!
to tell me about bad lesbian Sarah Paulson and Evan Peters with blue hair, pronouns, and Trump supporters because we're going there, baby.
Oh God. Of all the seasons. Oh God.
Halloween's coming, baby. Get ready for
Oh
those
God.
midterm elections, folks. Next time on Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray, our two hosts discover the two different types of cults, ones of personality and ones of cinema.